call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for coming, everyone. It's nice to be back. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Moore.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Iacilli.
Present.
Councilman Pell.
Present.
Councilman Martell.
Present.
Thank you. I move to approve the minutes of the Town Board meeting of June 10th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the communications?
The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the town of East Hampton, town of Riverhead, Village of Sag Harbor, notice of adoption, New York State liquor license, 30-day advance notice to local municipality from the listed entity, an annual statement of financial disclosure filings from the listed individual. We have received the following correspondence regarding emails, letters regarding the following. Chapter 330-83L, proposed planting restriction for front and side yards. Verbeski Airport Noise Mitigation Work Group report dated May 30th, 2025. Invasive plants on East Landing Road, Hampton Bays. Pine Barren credit purchase for 1004 Montauk Highway LLC Watermill. Planning board matter of as-built civil plans for solar facility at 1370 Majors Path, Southampton, and notice of annual Verbeski Community Advisory and Review Board meeting on July 15th, 2025. We opened one bid for request for proposals on Wednesday, June 18th for farming at Sarefield 93 Butter Lane Bridge, Hampton. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
Thank you. I do have three walk-ons. The first is Town Board Resolution ID number 50241, Notice of Public Hearing for Amendments to Town Code Chapter 143, Article 1, entitled Licensing of Home Improvement Contractors, to further refine the application and appeals procedure. The second walk-on is Town Board Resolution ID number 50257, to authorize the town attorney to accept a settlement from PURE Insurance Company for damage to a Southampton Town Police Department vehicle. And the third walk-on is Town Board Resolution ID number 50261, which is the warrant number 12. I move to add these three to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Well, before we move on tonight, we have a special treat where we have our youth volunteer recognition of our students. Tracy Colson is here from our youth department, and I think Rick Councilmember Martell is going to,
Michael, you with me?
and Michael, you're going to,
Yeah, go ahead. I'll follow you up.
as the liaisons.
All right, well, first I want to thank the board for supporting youth programs in Southampton Town, and a special thank you to our town board liaison, Rick Martell and Michael Iacilli. We can't get through all the red tape without you, so we really appreciate you doing everything for the community and everything for the Youth Bureau, so thank you for all your help. As you know, the Youth Bureau is responsible for fulfilling gaps in services in our community for youth and families. We do this by providing programs, events, and services for young people to help them overcome any obstacle that keeps them from achieving their goals. Because we work with such a variety population, interests, needs, that we have to be creative and innovative. And believe me, as a man of over 50, I find my creativity and innovativeness declining every year. So with our small staff of 5, it's a big undertaking to supply services for over 1,000 youth per each year. So to do this, we actually rely on our young people that we're actually here to help. So in all our programs, our goal is to teach our youth of how to become peer leaders and contribute to the community. One of the programs where students stand out is our Youth Advisory Committee, which we call affectionately YAC. YAC is a committee where students can join in 7th grade and usually stay on through their senior year. The committee is self-run by the students, of course, with guidance from Youth Bureau staff. In addition to learning about environmental and civic issues, they also choose monthly community service projects. I've worked with this program for a long time, and I've seen some amazing youth grow into young adults. I will admit that a couple of them are relatives of mine, but with spending so much time on weekends and evenings doing community service projects and in these meetings, I kind of start feeling like most of them are all actually become family after a while. I'm very proud to be here to recognize those students who are graduating and moving on to the next stages of their lives. But before we let them go, I'd love to recognize them for the amount of community service that these students have done for Southampton Town. But before we award certificates, actually, I would love to have our co-chair come up. And actually, would you all want to come up here? Come up here, yeah, absolutely. So our co-chair is Abigail McCutcheon. And Abigail, do you want to say a couple of things of what you've done at Youth Advisory?
Sure. Thank you guys for having me. YAC is so much more than just a program. In my 6 years here, since I've joined in 7th grade and following through to now, I've seen many, many challenges. The first being in my first year there, when I was in 7th grade, COVID happened, and we still prevailed through all of that. We had our meetings online, and we adapted, and that's what we overcome. In my years here, I've seen a lot of growth in myself, but also in our committee members in the program. I've seen them grow into true leaders through hardships and through the community service events that we do. Leaders I see in my friends and my family and my friends and my peers. The impact that YAC has on this community is astronomical. I see it in the events that we do, through helping the environment with our cleanups, our leaf rakings that we try to do annually, to more events based on community and children with and our seniors in the pancake breakfast we try every spring, and in SYS events and our outreach. YAC also has had such an impact on how I view things. It's helped grow my empathy and perspective for new situations. We learn so much through giving opportunities to youth, and I think that the connection that YAC brings to people in our community is important. Thank you.
Very nice.
I also want to say, I don't have their list of the community service hours of how many they have done, but since 7th grade, when Abigail had joined YAC, she's done over 300 hours of community service at the town of Southampton. Take this time then to, again, thank everyone, and Michael, if you want to come up this way to offer the certificates with Rick, that would be great.
No, come on, we can do it together. So I just want to, we don't get a lot of chances to thank the Youth Bureau for everything that they do. Tracy does an awesome job. For you that don't know, the Youth Bureau is split into basically two parts. One is the counseling end of it, where we take care of children who are at risk. We make sure that they get all the services that they need, and Tracy does an awesome job at that. We also have the programming side, which great programs like this are done. I just want to say she did all that. She said all that with like 5 bullet points. I mean, that's impressive. She's going to be here someday. But I want to say that, the pancake breakfast, all the programs they have, the after-school homework, you go right down the line. It's such an awesome program, awesome group that you have. And I apologize, maybe you can tell all your whole staff later. But, I've never been disappointed by the Youth Bureau, really impressed by everything that we do. So congratulations on that, Tracy. So we tried to split these into those who are here, so I might be missing one. So the first one we have is Megan Peterson. All right, we got a couple powerhouse sisters here now, too. So Abigail McCutcheon. Cassidy McCutcheon. Ashley Fleming. And last but not least, come on up. Angie Tirado Chocha. Andrea Jaron. So it's great, guys. I know you're moving on to extremely great things in the future, so thank you for all your service, and we appreciate you guys coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two big guys pushing on all those young girls.
Want a picture with everybody? You're okay with that?
We should have got them all at once, put the whole board, but
I know, I know. Now they're leaving.
Yeah.
Start on the first public hearing? Start on the first public hearing?
Yeah. All right, we've got 4 public hearings on tonight. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the first public hearing?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1, to consider the acquisition of a grant of historic preservation and conservation easement and grant of restrictive use easement and accompanying public access and benefit agreement on the property located at 76 Main Street, West Hampton Beach Performing Arts Center Incorporated, Village of West Hampton Beach, and to amend the CPF project plan and CPF management stewardship plan to include the property.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor and Town Council members. Jackie Fenlon, Director of Community Preservation. We are very happy to be here before you tonight to memorialize the proposal and the restrictive use easements and historic facade easement for West Hampton Beach Performing Arts. As noted in the public notice, the West Hampton Performing Beach Arts Center Incorporated is the owner of approximately 4.4 acres of land located at 76 Main Street in the incorporated village of West Hampton Beach, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 905-12-4-29.1. So we are here before you tonight to highlight the negotiations on the purchase of the historic preservation and conservation easement. So that will be memorializing and preserving the facade of the building. And then also the restrictive use easement, which is accompanied by a public access and benefit agreement. So we worked really diligently with Julianne Penza-Boone and Jim Hume on this. So it's really kind of enlightening to see how many programs they offer already, and becoming familiar with all the public benefits associated with that. So the restrictive use easement really memorializes that for town residents. I'm here. So I'll go over some of those details as well. And I did want to let everyone know that if you are curious about the specific public benefits, they are also posted to the town's website so that you can see the direct public benefits that will be associated with the restrictive use easement. And because this property is on Main Street, I think it's also just important to note that we are really trying to retain the anchor and establishments for community gathering places on our main streets. I think that's a very important component, and to see that the town board is supporting that, and obviously working with Julianne and Jim Hume has been a pleasure. So trying to keep our downtowns vibrant, but also keep that historic facade is very important for this main street in this area. So because of that, we are recommending that it be designated under the historic places and properties target area to retain that historic character and facade on Main Street in West Hampton Beach. And then just to go over some of the public access benefits and agreements that we have. Again, you can find these online, but just to go through them briefly. They already offer school day performances. So this is with 8,000 students being served from pre-K to 12th grade. So what we are doing is we're memorializing the price of that per ticket to $17 per student, but it can obviously then be added to over time based upon the annual consumer price index for all urban consumers. So that will kind of lock in the price now and retain the affordability of that program. And may I say that my children benefit from that program, and it's very nice. It's very exciting, and they always see a new performance every year, so it's lovely. And the Arts and Education Youth Camps. So these are youth camps that are over the summer that serve over 300 children from 5 to 17. And they're 8-week-long camps for musical theater, dance, and Broadway acting. So that's in July and August. So this is a program that they're offering, and so we wanted to ensure that no child is denied access to the youth program based upon financial need. So they have agreed to provide 10% of those campers would be free of charge based upon eligibility for free and reduced lunch programs. The next is already offered for free, and that will continue, but that is Melodies and Memories. So this is for senior citizen programs, and this is 10 weeks, and this is free. So this is currently free, and that will stay free. Another program that they offer, and they partner with the Butterfly Monologue, so it's kind of titled Butterfly Monologues, but that is a similar program designed for participants of the Butterfly Effect Project located in Riverhead. So they are helping teach students and young folks to share their stories, turn them into monologues, and then perform those. So that's another program that is going to be free of charge. And then the main stage presentations. So those are the main stage events. This is a program where these are very, how would you say, important performances. They draw people to this, to the theater in the summer months. So instead of setting a per cost, amount or a percentage, what they have provided is that at least 400 tickets per calendar year will be offered free of charge to military service members, police officers, firefighters, nurses, nursing home residents, as well as town residents. So if there's any extra tickets, they will basically broadcast that, and I believe it'll be just like a free online lottery system where you can apply if there's any tickets available for that show. And last but not least is the Finest in World Cinema. So this is these are showings of foreign documentaries and independent films using their digital projector, and these are in the summer months, and this will also be available. But this one we were able to keep it at the $20 plus the consumer index. But these will also be available free of charge to military, police, firefighters, nursing home residents, and town residents as well. So that's really like the basic summary of the public use and benefit. And we're restricting this so that it is always going to be retained as a community gathering space. So this document can be amended, but obviously both parties would have to mutually agree. So this can be a living document that the town board can review, and if changes are necessary, this will be an exhibit to the restrictive use easement.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I would like to, if you would have Julianne.
Yeah.
Julianne Penza is the executive director for West Hampton Beach Performing Arts Center, so she just wanted to say a few words.
Yes, please, come on up.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Moore and Southampton Town Council members, for having me here. On behalf of the West Hampton Beach Performing Arts Center's Board of Directors, staff, Cultural Equity Council, volunteers, and thousands of enthusiastic patrons and students, I want to thank you and the Community Preservation Fund, particularly Jackie and Dan, who have worked so hard on this, and the Landmarks Board and Julie Green and the Village of West Hampton Beach. Your recognition of WHBPAC as both a historic and important landmark and also a vital public community resource means everything to us. These funds will help our very healthy institution continue for another quarter of a century and beyond, and ensure that we are able to provide exceptional arts programming and arts learning for generations. You can be assured that these funds will go straight to mission-related activities, namely giving the residents of the town of Southampton the very finest in performing arts experiences, while also stimulating the downtown of West Hampton Beach by drawing in tens of thousands of cultural tourists each year. So thank you so much for your consideration.
Well, thank you, Julianne and Dan and Jackie, for working so collaboratively to come up with the listings that show what has been happening all this time with all the community benefits that the Performing Arts Center provides. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I just briefly wanted to thank you and Dan and Julianne and Jim for working on this. I mean, this started with the prior board, and I think this is interesting. I think, Maria, this had your support as both the mayor and the supervisor. We've been working on this for quite a while, and I think it struck a really good balance between understanding that, the theater still has to put on events, and those events cost a lot of money, and they need to keep that revenue, but also keeping it there for the community and for kids. My kids danced there and went to events there and schools, stuff. So it's nice to see it continue. So thank you for your work on it.
And to know that the facade will always stay as it is, and it's such a little jewel of Main Street.
Yeah, it's really an anchor, right? And so, like they said, Julian said, like so many people come to visit this theater, right, that might not have ever walked West Hampton Main Street. And then it brings a familiarity and, it just brings new people and, vitality to Main Street, which is great. Instead of being an office, that's like stuccoed,
Yeah.
And it matches the windmill.
Yes. It complements the windmill, yes. I did want to also say, importantly, though, we did also work with West Hampton Beach personnel on the IMA so that we could also have joint enforcement for like the landmarking status. So that's also very important that we worked with Kelly Doyle from the town attorney's office on the beginning of this so that we actually had structuring to be able to monitor this because they don't have staffing for the historic facade and review. So that will be able to, we have an IMA that will allow the town landmarking and historic district board to review any changes or facade modifications throughout the process. So that's also very important to note as well. We did a lot of work on that. Yeah.
So Jackie, it's really important that we always look at the community benefits. I was really shocked that the list was so long. I was very happy to see that. We sometimes, the arts gets lost in the shuffle. And the fact that our students can now partake in some camps and classes is amazing. But also our seniors and our veterans can, go to a show they might not be able to afford otherwise. And there's plenty of great content at West Hampton PAC. So I'm really happy that we're getting this done.
Exactly. Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I don't have any cards for this, but Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom that wants to be heard at this public hearing?
I have one hand up.
All right.
There we go. Good evening. This is Jim Hill. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I did want to add my thanks along with Julianne's. It was a wonderful working with Jackie and her folks to get to this wonderful benefit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Off quick.
Breaking the rules.
Breaking the law.
Well, if no one else has any other comments, then I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming in tonight. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the second public hearing?
Public hearing number 2, to accept an open space parcel in connection with the planned residential development cluster plan for subdivision map known as Noyak Northview LLC in the hamlet of Noyak.
Good evening, Supervisor, members of the board. Christine Scalera, Deputy Town Attorney. I have to apologize. I had a nice little map up that was colored in, but it seems to have grown legs and it's not here. So you're just going to have to use your imagination. But for your consideration tonight is the acceptance of an open space parcel totaling 6.891 acres on an approximate 12.212 acre site in connection with the planned residential district cluster plan for Noyak Northview LLC. The map is located in both the CR 80 and CR 200 zoning districts and an aquifer protection overlay district and in a New York State archaeological sensitive area for which a phase 1 archaeological study was done and there were no artifacts found. It is located in the hamlet of Noyak and is further identified on the Suffolk County tax map as number 900-14167. The final application consists of a cluster plan with 4 residential lots with an average lot size of 59,947 square feet, and the 5th lot as open space, which as stated is approximately 6.891 acres. The open space is adjacent to existing town-owned open space and provides a trail link with the existing Pominock Trail. If the board is so inclined, I recommend closing the public hearing, and if there is a resolution of adoption at the end of the packet if the board wanted to approve it tonight.
I would just say it's great that it connects to the Palmanock Trail. The Southampton Trail Society actually just recently visited the Noyak Civic Council during this past month's meeting, so it's a good thing that we're going ahead with this.
It's a large strip. I'm sorry I can't show
That's
it to
okay.
you, but it's a large strip, so it's nice.
Okay, I don't have any cards for this, but Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to be heard?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, would you?
I did put a card, but I'd like to say something.
Sure, you're welcome to come on up.
This is out of my lane of Bridgehampton.
Just state your name for the
I'm sorry,
record.
Pamela Harwood. I live in Bridgehampton, but my family is also in Noyak, but it's a little out of my lane and not in Bridgehampton. But we're dealing with so many open space reserves that are in Bridgehampton connected with subdivisions. So I just have a question. Is there an easement on this? Is it part of a trail? I didn't really see much explanation here. Is it part of is it just an open space trail, or is it actually an open space parcel within a development that would have an easement on it that restricts what can be happening on the open space? That's my question.
Thank you.
Let Christine
have the-
come back
Good,
and
thank
answer.
you
I wish
so
we
much.
had the rendering.
There is in fact a conservation easement that would be placed on it for open space. And because it's connected, it's a long piece and it runs in the back of the subdivided lots that are going to be residential lots. And it actually hits town-owned properties in two different places. So it has an interconnected trail that will be able to go from the beginning, and then it goes around another town piece and it can come out. And then it also hits the Palmanock Trail. So they're two different trail systems, but it very definitely will have limited use in terms of just those being able to use those trails. You can't do anything else there, and we'll have a document that says that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any other comments or concerns? Okay, and nobody was on Zoom, right?
No.
All right, then, thank you, Christine. I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the third public hearing?
Public hearing number 3, to consider a local law to rezone certain parcels from highway business to village business and hamlet commercial, located on the north and south sides of Montauk Highway between Ponquag Avenue and the intersection south of Old Riverhead Road in the hamlet of Hampton Bays as per the Hampton Bays Corridor Strategic Plan and associated generic environmental impact statement.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the Town Board. I'm Janice Scherer, Town Planning and Development Administrator. You see here on this map, and it was also in the public notice, that this swath of lands, these various parcels that total 26 different parcels, are slated for rezoning. Most of them here down here are highway business, and they would move to hamlet commercial. And then there's a couple up here, which isn't, this is the church, but that's a VB zone. It was supposed to be VB, it's highway business right now. And then these up on the north side would also be our highway business, and they would be hamlet commercial. Just for your edification, in the adopted corridor plan and comprehensive plan for Hampton Bays, it was a generic environmental impact statement, and they looked at this at the time, the community and the town, and HO and different HC zones have been successfully implemented in the town in Bridgehampton, Noyak, Watermill, and North Sea. What they really do is that they create a different scale and appearance. So it's a step down from a more traditional hamlet, Main Street, and where highway business is larger structures. These structures are meant to be smaller. You can have a series of interconnected ones with varying roof lines, but the idea is that it looks residentially scaled and more green space. It's required to have 60% impervious surface area. So there's a lot more green space associated with hamlet commercial. And the uses are retail, but they're not like heavy, like special trade contractors or things you would see normally in highway business. They're more geared toward a hamlet center. And the reason why it was proposed this way was because the idea was the beginning of the traditional Main Street was at Old Riverhead Road, and you even see a sign there today that says Hampton Bays, welcome to Hampton Bays, or Hampton Bays Hamlet Center, Main Street. Yeah, so when you turn right, it's right there, that sign. So that was the idea of like connecting this all to really be designated as the Hamlet Center, but not the intensity of like a village business district, which would allow more coverage, basically.
So to create a transitional section.
Yes, so HOHC, Hamlet Office or Hamlet Commercial, in this case Hamlet Commercial, are meant to be step-down transition zoning from a traditional Hamlet Center out. So.
And you showed us that this is set forth in the comprehensive plan, that this was recommended.
Yes, it
that
was.
these
So
change-
there
these
was
specific changes.
those specific changes. There was a list of designated parcels. I'm just looking for what I did with it. So that in the strategic plan, there was, in the attachment parcels subjected to the rezoning. So there was a list, a map, and they're here. This is only just this main swath. And then there's more to the east, but I think that those are, not a continuous block. There's like a couple and then a few more later. So, I mean, this is like the first comprehensive block that you would be looking
I
at.
have a few questions for you, Janice.
Sure.
If we wanted to add on to it, the Main Street, make it longer, more to the east, like we just said, there's other parcels down there, or maybe to the west, is it possible? And also, to do a 25 mile per hour, any plans of doing 25 miles per hour speed limit in the village, in the business district? And also, we should look at putting safety crosswalks like they did in Bridgehampton and other hamlets, because that's a big traffic problem there, and I would not want to see someone get run over or hit by a car.
Sure. The state is responsible for Montauk Highway in that
Yes.
location, so we would just have to coordinate any activity
I
or
realize
speed
that.
limit changes with.
But we should look at
Oh,
that.
actually, the
It might be
county.
the county, right?
Yeah, it gets a little funny. It's like county and state. So I think you're right. Where the main street proper is county. And then, yeah, so this would probably still be Suffolk County, which is actually easier.
Yes.
So that's better.
State owns the road,
county runs the road.
Yeah, if we could reduce the speed limit and add traffic calming measures, that would be also supported by the comp plan.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Well, I'm here in case you want any changes or have further
Don't
questions.
go anywhere because I have a lot of cards for this one.
Great. Thank
Dennis,
you.
can you just explain, if someone owns a parcel now and they have a business on it, what happens to them? They keep that forever, it transfers with a new owner, how does that work?
Use is run with the land. So any use you have on any particular property that has a certificate of occupancy stays with the land for as long as the land is there. So unless you want to if it becomes a non-conforming use, then the rule is you can expand that use up to 50% through the ZBA. But you can't go beyond a 50% expansion of a non-conforming use. But if you have a CO, let's say, for a use that is allowed in highway business but not allowed in HC that it's turning to, it's grandfathered.
Okay, thank
Until
you.
it's sold and then the new business.
Oh, no.
Until it's abandoned or they come back in and change something, until then.
The CO would run with the owner, with the land, if somebody else bought it. But if it was a termination of that use, then the use would
Right, we would have to, the burden is on the town to show that it's been abandoned.
Right.
Yeah. So, but like the lot coverage of highway business is 30%, the lot coverage of HC is 20%. So it's a lot more green space. Like HC was really meant to be a greener, cuter, smaller, scaled. You could get up to, so highway business allows a 15,000 square foot building. HC allows only 3, but you can have a series of 3. Like you can have more than, you can have a bunch, but they have to be like a, so situated that they're smaller and not just one mega building. They have to be like connected by breezeways or just a multiple buildings that are of smaller scale.
5,000 to 3,000?
15.
Oh, 15.
If you, no, it's still 15, but you have to do it in 3,000 increments of 3,000 each building. You couldn't do just one mega 15. It has to be smaller. You could get up to 6,000 with a special exception, but that's a different story. But it could be up to 6,000 as well.
So if somebody has a building right now that's 15,000 square feet and they're operating out of the entire building, but then they want to close their business, a new owner would have to come in and divide up the building into 5 sections?
No, they'd probably get grandfathered for that building. But if they want to demolish that building, buildings only last so long. And eventually the building will have to be rebuilt. And at that point, they would have to comply with the zoning or get a variance.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Any other questions?
All right, well, we'll see.
Okay, I'll be here. Thank you.
All right, first up, Marion Bowden. And after Marion, Eileen McPhail. After you, I was just saying Eileen.
You're waving?
Marion Bowden, excuse me, Hampton Bays. It should have been an easy decision for me to make, but it really was not. It was very difficult. And I also hope you'll bear with me because as generally the oldest person in the room these days, in any room I go into, I'd like to give some background since nobody was ever here back 30 years ago, okay? In my years of monitoring town decisions regarding Hampton Bays, I've seen my hamlet victimized all too often by those in power for the sake of keeping peace elsewhere in town or for some personal or political reason, rather than for the well-being of Hampton Bays. That alone has been painful, but what has been even more painful is the time and energy many of us in the community have spent monitoring the very people who supposedly were representing our best interests. There are numerous examples. The most recent probably was the Best fiasco. I must say that this current town board perhaps is the most open and responsive board I have worked with in close to 30 years. And that gives me a sense of peace going forward, and I thank you for that. And now to the matter of hand, East Main Street. A number of years ago, I believe it was during Skip Heaney's time as supervisor, we added the words Main Street, as Janice mentioned, down on Old Riverhead Road, and that sign is still there. I have a picture of it on my iPhone. Main Street, we added the words Main Street from that stretch on Montauk Highway between Old Riverhead Road and where the diner no longer is, sadly. The intent was to create a lane and lengthen the village business zone and have a transition zone between the very short business district, especially east of Ponquag Springville. I'm having trouble reading here, hold on. But it was to lengthen the zone, and we were shocked, I think. Okay, I'll go into that in a second anyway. I know many of us, and I think many people even in Town Hall, thought that because the Main Street sign was put there and everything, that it was all done. It was a kind of a done deal. And so we were shocked that when certain proposals started to come forward so close to the center of town. Certain types of businesses were being proposed which seemed inappropriate, so close to the heart of downtown, and we were taken surprise. In one instance, the previous administration declined to have public hearings on the matter, and we were left in the dark. So again, instead of being protected from inappropriate development in a vital area of the hamlet, the people were mostly left to fend for themselves. Many years ago, there was a fairly large appliance store on the corner of Ponquag and Montauk. It was called Suffolk Appliance, for anybody who...
I remember that.
Who remember it?
Yeah, I remember the bakery store, the bakery across the street where Gators was.
Oh, no, this was Ponquag Appliance, where the beauty parlor is right on the corner, yeah. And anyway, they advertised themselves as being in the heart of downtown Hampton Bays. I remember that so well. I think there was also another ad, shows you how far we've come, that said at the traffic light in Hampton Bays. Downtown
30
Hampton.
seconds.
What?
30 seconds
Oh,
left.
golly. Give me another minute. Thank you. Especially since I'm having trouble reading. Anyway, it's ludicrous that probably less than 1,000 feet from the heart of downtown Hampton Bays, that the area is zoned highway business. And I think that's what really, caught us by surprise. It opens it up to too many businesses that I believe most of us believe are not appropriate in a village business or a transition zone. I see no major problem with the proposal on tonight's agenda about the rezoning certain parcels there, except it doesn't go far enough in bringing the entire downtown into better focus. But on a very practical level, I believe a moratorium, while more ideal, could bring us more harm than good for this moment in time. Sometimes we have to hold out for the complete and perfect solution. Other times we have to bend in order to accomplish something. And so, to paraphrase Voltaire, the perfect can often be the enemy of the good. And so, while not perfect, this is, I believe, the most feasible action we can take now. And so I'd like you to bear these comments in mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marion. And,
Thank you.
and it doesn't mean it won't get revisited in the future. It doesn't mean we can't revisit it in the future, but for now.
I know that.
Exactly.
I realize that. I hope that you can revisit things in the future.
Of course,
That's
we're
what I'm saying.
so
In other words,
open-minded.
It can't be an all or nothing at all deal right now. I believe it would be more harmful in the long run for us. Even though it would be maybe the more ideal solution, it's not going to happen. Basically.
Thank you. And Eileen, you still pass, okay. Patty Hamill?
Yes, that's me. I'm going to defer any comments now as well.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Gail Lombardi? That looks like 5. Okay.
Welcome back, Supervisor Moore, and I hope you're
Very much.
feeling
It's
better.
good to be back.
Thank you.
I sent that, what I've handed to Sunday is the letter I sent you all earlier today. So, I commend the town board in my letter, I'll just touch on it. I commend the town board for addressing this along Montauk Highway. It's long overdue, as Marion said. I looked at the corridor strategic plan painfully for thousands of hours back when I filed my lawsuit for the HBDOD. And it was like nails on a chalkboard having to go through it again, to be honest. But I spent a little time on it. The issue I have is that it would really be an arbitrary decision to just take a portion of the corridor strategic plan at this juncture, a portion of the zoning changes, and move forward with them. I think you need to look at them, and I think it's a good idea, but it's been represented to us that village business is no longer applicable, and and if you look at the Hampton, the Hamlet commercial, it's not Hamlet commercial, it's Hamlet commercial / residential, and it allows for single family, 2-family, up to 4-family housing, standalone housing. So we may end up, we don't want a auto zone, but I don't necessarily want 1,200 square feet of potential like housing either. So I think the town needs to just spend a little more time on looking at what the goals are of downtown. I looked at the corridor strategic plan. Very specific issues I raised in the plan is that it's based on the 2000 census. The traffic information is from 2004. So you really don't, all the recommendations that came out of the corridor strategic plan about that, the transitional, what the village business was also before you guys adopted the pattern book, which changes, the development in the downtown. So it is really hard to say, I agree with Marion, I don't want an auto zone. I don't want the laundromat, but the laundromat has gone through how many years of planning under highway business. And so now you're pulling the rug out from under that, and maybe some of the other people that are looking to develop that in highway business. So I do believe that I think it was John Bouvier said, you can't fix a car while it's moving or a plane while it's moving. And I do think you need to look at quickly setting up a moratorium on the Main Street developments. And you already have the pattern book, you already have some ideas of what you want to do. You know, the developer has represented he's going to build 150 apartments in the downtown. That's not part of the corridor strategic plan. Like I said, you have old traffic, you have old demographics. The data is so old, and 20 years later, things have changed. So it's very hard to say that this is what you should do. I'm not saying it isn't what you should do. I don't know if it's a rational decision, and I think, you know, the property owners that may be against it, I think they have a position against the town as some version of spot zoning, to be honest. So I'm an attorney, I'm not gonna give you legal advice, but I really hope that you guys look at this. This is fabulous that you've taken this on. It's way overdue. And I just don't think you have enough information to adopt it. And I think you should consider a moratorium and take a look at this just like you did the best zoning. It should, you know, I think it's time to do the right thing by Hampton Bays, Montauk Harbor. Thanks.
Thank you, Gail. Joseph Lesberg and Susan Lesberg.
Thank you, Supervisor and Board. My name is Joseph Lesberg. I'm the owner of Mott's Only, or TBA Mott's Green Grocer. We're looking to open a cannabis dispensary at 93 East Montauk Highway. You know, if this change of use happens, it will affect us from being able to open our store. We now see that from the meeting and from everybody here that the reason that this zoning is happening seems to be because you guys don't want us coming into your town, which to me, you know, we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have children in daycare ourselves. We understand that the church is down the block. It is zoned a church. So, you know, we're here against this. It will also affect our landlord who's here against this because he won't be able to lease that property. It's all been a blighted property that has been abandoned for many years. And we're looking to turn it into something very beautiful for the town with regulated, safe cannabis. Nobody over the age of 21 will be able to come to our store or come on our property. We've been going through this process with the town for a long time. And, you know, the fact that this zoning is now coming up seems like it's a target for us. You know, the amount of time, energy, stress, and money that this has put my family and my brother and me through is very intense. And, you know, my grandmother, the reason that she was able to live for 5 years longer was because she used medical cannabis. And she was on bed rest for years. And then she started using THC patches instead of fentanyl patches, which really changed her life. And I think that safe cannabis in the community is a good thing for the community. It will bring a lot of tax revenue to the community. And we plan to be a part of this community. I joined the Civic Association. I want to be at these meetings. We want to be involved with the town. We want to speak to James and Maria and get involved with these types of meetings because we are very legitimate business owners. We own a company that has lent over $500 million to cannabis companies. And we want to open our store here. And we want to feel welcomed by the community, not that you guys are trying to zone us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. And is it Sean? Sean Lesberg? Okay. Sorry, I thought it was Susan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Lusberg. My brother Joe just got up and spoke as well. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to also ask a couple questions. You know, we've signed a lease for this property here over a year ago. We've been paying, rent on it while we're kind of going through the planning board process. As my brother mentioned, we've done everything the town has asked us to do. The planning board told us it was good. Even the old town supervisor showed us this property and told us it was a compliant site. So, we've invested a lot of money. We've done all the drawings. We've done all the surveys, the traffic surveys and everything. And, now according to the chief building inspector, he made a determination, which, we've heard came from Janice, and that they're trying to consider the church a school when everybody knows that it's not properly zoned, a school, and it's a church. So that's mainly the big issue that we're facing, and we're going through the zoning board of appeal process now. Obviously, we don't have a CO yet. We haven't kind of gotten through that process. So my question is, you mentioned kind of grandfathered in for the type of use, specifically for a licensed cannabis dispensary, we have to be in highway business. So I just wanted to kind of see, and ask the question of what happens to us in that type of situation. Thank you.
Mr. Lusberg, so just in terms of the accusations that this legislation is tied to zoning you out, I can't speak to that because I don't think that that's what it is. But what I do want to ask you is are you aware of the fact that many of the churches in our community have many programs that are educational, that do help various people in the community? Oftentimes there's children involved in those efforts. I just want to make sure that you are aware
Of course.
of that. Okay.
My daughter goes to a similar church daycare school.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to, make any accusations. I'm sorry, maybe if it came off that way, it just kind of, seems like throughout this process, we've just been hitting an obstacle at every point, and that this just kind of seems like the biggest one. And, it kind of seems like it could just be ripped all out from underneath our feet if, you guys do pass this. So I would strongly suggest you guys to reconsider. And I think, changing the downtown area to landlords itself really limits on the type of businesses that they could rent to. So you're kind of, limiting that for those landlords to be able to, rent to a vast type of businesses. This specific property obviously couldn't be rented for a lot of businesses. It's been sitting vacant for a while. So, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Ray D'Angelo?
Just to your point, Michael, I'll just add that to the chief building inspector's decision, both of my children went to school in the church that was a school that's not a school, so kind of take offense to that.
Hi, Ray. How you doing tonight?
Good. Supervisor, it's great to see you back. I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
I was just at the doctor today. I may have to have some body parts removed.
Oh, my God.
Who's your doctor?
I'll tell you
Mine's
offline.
my knee. Mine's my knee.
Oh, that's even worse. Sorry.
I wasn't going to talk, but I want to correct something that the other young man that just spoke said. St. Rosalie's has a preschool, which is part of Our Lady of Mercy Our Lady of the Hamptons. It is a school. It's a licensed school. He misrepresented that. Also, we have religious instructions there, which is, part of the curriculum that goes on at the church. It's a church school. It teaches Catholic catechism. So I don't like that miscapitalization. And the last thing is, I know they spent a lot of money, but we don't trade money for the safety of our children. So that's how we feel about it. So I'm sorry they spent a lot of money, and I'm sorry that you listened to the previous supervisor. But you shouldn't have. And just to go back a little bit, to opt out of this thing required negative affirmation. And there was never a public hearing conducted by the previous administration, Mr. Schneiderman's administration. There was never a public hearing held about that. I don't know if it was required, but something of such gravity should have been held. All the villages and those churches are opted out, so they're safe. So we have violation of 14th Amendment here. We're not all being treated the same. We have people that don't have to worry about this, but then there's other people that they have, and this so happens to have to be a Catholic church in Hampton Bays. So there's big issues here, and I'm uneasy that it's going to the Zoning Board of Appeals because, like I said, I think that's an institution that is, I've made it very clear that I thought there's conflict of interest there. There's an interesting election going on in the town of Smithtown. And it's between two Republican incumbents. One's the incumbent supervisor, and the other one's challenging it. And it comes down to overdevelopment. It's like under the banner of revitalizations, developers, with help of politicians that support them, are trying to change these areas into areas like Queens with 4-story buildings, 3-story buildings. And I was just watching the guy that's running against them and said, well, go to Queens if you want to live like that. And I feel the same way. I didn't move out here. I worked my whole life in Manhattan, and I lived in downtown Queens. And I didn't come out here to start change this place into Queens. I mean, right now in the morning, Montauk Highway is a parking lot. Lynn Avenue, it's like, going 40 miles an hour because they come down Dune Road. They want to bypass the traffic jam. So bring this all together, going back to the corridor study, which was based on 2000 census, we're a completely different hamlet now. We're not the same hamlet at all. We have a lot of development that went on. We have traffic all over the place coming here tonight. I hit a lot of traffic. The traffic going the other way is again, a parking lot through Hampton Bays. So, I mean, again, I'm on both sides. I'm not on both sides. I absolutely oppose the location of this cannabis site. But the other thing, I also am not comfortable with changing the zoning because I don't know what that's going to entail going forward. Because we don't need, if the end result is going to be more residential development, we don't need that. We don't have the infrastructure.
30 seconds.
75, we have the same roads that we had when I was 9 years old. And we have like maybe 10 to 20 times the amount of cars. We had other developments. The Shinnecock Nation wants to put up a big development. I don't know what that's going to do to us. It's going to change completely the character of this community, Hampton Bays. That's about, just going back again for the negative, to get out of this thing, you had to have negative affirmation, which means you had to opt out of it, right? And that's similar to the community church aggregation, which I think is dead now, thank God, because that would have been another thing. You wanted everybody to opt in, to opt out, you had to opt out, which I think was crazy. It was never properly done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, well, that's it for the cards on this. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak at this third public hearing?
No hands up on Zoom.
What do you want to do?
I'd like to close it and leave the written record open for 2 weeks.
Do you guys want to speak now?
Said it all, right? Okay, well then, if there isn't any other comments or questions, I move to close the public hearing, but leave it open for written comments for the next 2 weeks. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I have a quick question. Can it be extended 3 weeks?
No, because we have their meetings in 2 weeks.
Has to be 2 weeks.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the fourth public hearing?
Public hearing number 4, to consider enactment of planting restriction for front and side yards 5 feet from property line.
Good evening, Supervisor Moore, members of the town board, Assistant Town Attorney Sean Cambridge. So this legislation.
Sean, can you turn the mic up because you can't really hear him?
Everyone's moving it.
Thanks.
So this legislation, just to start at the 20,000-foot view and kind of come down here. In this country and in the state, basically we have common law that is law interpreted by the judicial branch, and it funnels down into appellate divisions, just put it very simply. So the established common law in New York State, real property law, treats trees as a nuisance, which sounds odd. We all like trees. We all, don't want to cut trees, things like that. But trees are treated as a nuisance. And your remedy under the law is something called self-help. And what that means is on your property lines, you're entitled to trim straight up. And the most prominent example of this that I can think of is our lot across the street, where we park all the town vehicles. You'll see the town cut straight up on those trees. That's what the law says we can do. This bill before the board tonight is a piece of legislation that would require new plantings to be placed 5 feet off the property line. I believe the legislative intent was to stop some of that cutting possibly, or to alleviate people feeling the need to do that cutting, that trimming. So the common law makes it very clear what your rights are as a property owner. You do have the right to cut those trees. I think this bill is seeking to alleviate some of that trimming.
Sean, just a question. So in this, because I received a few comments via email and on the phone, and it was mentioned that this accounts, people fear that they're going to have to take out their existing trees on the property line. This is really accounting for new development, new trees, new plantings.
Right. So this is not drafted as an amortization statute. This would have no effect on pre-existing plantings. This would be intended for things going through the planning board, things going for basically whole site renovations.
It wouldn't apply retroactively.
No, there's no wording here that says it would. And frankly, I don't think the state law and the state common law would support, retroactively moving trees based on what I've explained very briefly.
Thank you. And Sean, we've been working at this with Maria and some community members for the better part of about a year, I think, when this came to us as a request. And I just wanted to, for the public's edification, this didn't come out of nowhere. This is my bill. I'm introducing it. It was created after some folks in the community reached out to us regarding encroachment of trees and overgrowth. Specifically, homeowners who have neighbors that planted right on the property line do not have to trim on the other side of the property that isn't theirs. For example, neighbor A plants green giants on the line of neighbor B and only trims on neighbor A's side. When neighbor B asks if they can trim on the other side, most neighbors are great. Most neighbors are good. They help out. But the people that we spoke to said that they've faced issues with their neighbors that they didn't help them. So the legislation really only, again, accounts for new plantings, not existing. And the goal is really to address how new plantings should go accordingly. The folks who we spoke to are from places like Bridgehampton, Noyac, and even the West Hampton area. And it was explained to me that many times these individuals are forced to hire a landscaper to trim the plants or trim the trees that are not, that they don't feel like it's theirs, they didn't plant them, and they're stuck with the cost burden. And it's important to mention that a lot of the people I spoke to were senior citizens, and some said that they were on fixed incomes, or they don't have always the ability to afford to trim what isn't theirs, maintain hedges or bushes, or in other circumstances, they had mobility challenges. So that's who this legislation was seeking to help. Not everyone has the money to trim their property, their neighbor's property plants. So we were asked to try to figure out something to do to address that. So this legislation was drawn up after gathering those concerns, and we put it into this bill. By no means is this a waste of time, or is this being pushed for no reason. I was elected, Maria was elected, Cindy was elected, we all were elected to respond to you. So the goal of this bill is merely to have a conversation, hear what the folks in the community have to say. In fact, I had a very wonderful conversation earlier today from a woman who opposes this bill. And her name is Louise, and she's from Eastport. And she was concerned about, the size of the properties and property rights generally. But let me tell you, she had some amazing ideas. She had some thoughts about alternative ways we could look at this, ways we could revise the legislation. I had some other conversations for people who support this bill, who feel it could be helpful to implement some changes. So I am on board with any ideas that people have. I'm not dug into this. This is really an open conversation. As mayor, and I appreciate your comments about this board. We're one of the most open and transparent, according to you, and that's great. This is about people coming to me saying this should be a code. We're exploring that. We're having the conversation. We're taking in all comments. That's what we're doing here. So I just want to be clear about that. And from there, I hope we can move forward accordingly.
So I think we all have something we want to say, so. Go ahead.
I kind of agree with Michael, because, I come up here, I don't prejudge anything. And we have to listen to the people, and, this might not be the perfect thing. We might have to change it, add something, take something out. I mean, my daughter bought a house in Southampton, a small house, and there was another house alongside of the house was torn down. They built a mega mansion, and they put a hedge right down her property line. Her property is narrow and long. And then the people said, oh, by the way, would you mind chipping in $1,500 to fertilize and cut it? And my daughter says, how about you cutting it? Because we just bought this house a few years ago, and we're paying a mortgage. We did not build a spec house. Right. And this is what happens. You might say, oh, you can't put a hedge on a property line, but you could put a boxwood on that. And there's all different inputs we have to get from on both sides to make it in the middle. You can't prejudge it. You can't say that we're wasting time. You can't go on Facebook and put it down, because both sides have an opportunity to put input in it to make it right. That's the same thing we did with the bus. We listened, we took our time, and the same thing we were going to do with downtown Hampton Bays. That has to be done, but it has to be done correctly.
It's difficult
This has to be done
with
correctly.
this because, a lot of people will plant something like the big green giants or the cryptomeria, and, those are going to grow 5-6 feet on either side. But if you plant boxwoods, what are they going to grow? Matter of inches. So how do you do it? And I can say that for myself, we finally planted some trees along our property line after 28 years. And but they're the green giants, and I know how big they're going to get. So we did plant them 6 feet off the property line. It's not going to create a big strip of nothing, because in 5, 6, 7 years, it'll grow right over. So that's really what, we were thinking about here, so that one person shouldn't be able to create a property burden on their neighbor. And, but, we can't craft a code that says, well, if you plant boxwood, you can go right up to but if it's a cryptomeria, you have to be
So much
7 feet
variation.
off, So it occurred to me the other day when we were getting a lot of the input from the community that you had mentioned that this is not New York State code law, that this is common law. So can't we use our home rule authority to say we're shifting the burden? If you plant too close to your neighbor and the branches and shrubs overhang your neighbor's property, now you are responsible.
We could attempt it, but we may not do so well in appellate courts when we're challenged ultimately.
But don't we have the authority, since it's not a statute, it's just common law that,
So
came
the higher
from
up we
maybe
go,
from when properties were huge and, now they're smaller and it's more of a concern.
I don't think so. I think it's precedent, it's legal precedent, and it's going to go top down. So the higher courts' rulings are going to set that precedent. We could try it. You're the board, you're inclined, you're the policymakers, but we may be challenged on something like that.
Because to me, that would be a good answer to say, someone's planting what's going to be a very large tree or hedge right near the property line. And you say to your neighbor, please plant it further back. No, we're not going to. Well, in 5 years, when it starts to overhang, now I could require them to trim it on my side. They'll have to send somebody over, or if I have to do it, they would have to have pay the bill. You know, if we could adopt a law like that, then we wouldn't have to do a setback and talk about different kinds of plantings.
That's a good point. I think in the situation what you're describing, and if the branch was to break and hit your house, they would be responsible for that. So
Yeah.
there's a connection there.
Right now, it's all on, you as the property. Somebody-
There is case law if you plant bamboo, because I had a neighbor who planted bamboo on my property line, and I had to hire a lawyer to go after, to do the homework on it, and there was some cases where.
Right, it's a DEC invasive.
Extremely invasive.
Yeah, if a plant crosses the property line and does damage, the homeowners who planted it is responsible, and that's how I got him to move it out.
I think bamboo essentially is prohibited in most areas, right?
That's a bit of a different animal. We did research that about 6 years ago, and the board declined to move forward with legislation like that about bamboo, but we certainly could do that as well.
It was about 6 years because I brought it up to the board.
Yeah, so I have a draft of that somewhere that we could dig out and revive if you'd like, but.
So I said 2 questions for you real quick. One is, this is in the zoning code? So
Yes.
presumably, could people appeal the distance to the zoning board of appeals?
People could really
And
appeal.
say, to the supervisor's point, I want to plant boxwoods, so I want to plant them a foot off the property line?
Arguably, yes.
Okay, and then my second question is, with the question about having your neighbor cut back the trees, I personally feel we are now getting involved in civil disputes, and in the case where a property line isn't obvious, who pays for the survey to decide whose property it's on?
That's a good question.
Because they're not all cut and dry, right? Every property line doesn't have monuments, doesn't have fences, it's not flagged. And so you get a question of neighbors arguing over something being too close to their property line. Who's responsible for the survey in that case?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
Well, and I don't think it would be the town that would be sending code enforcement. This would be, the code would require this, but it would be a civil matter that they would go to small claims court if they had to.
Maybe, yeah. So the intention here was like on the front end, on the planning side.
It's actually a really good point, though, that the councilwoman brings up. And the reason being is that I think, our question is are we getting involved in civil matters here?
No, we're not.
One of the things that I think is really important here to emphasize, and maybe this is how we either, offer a different bill or change the bill, but if you are a senior citizen or you have mobility challenges, what then, right? If there is something on the property line that is growing and you physically cannot do anything, and let's say your neighbor, and this is another comment from the public, is that their neighbor isn't there. They're vacationers. They're there maybe 2 weeks out of the year, and you can't get in touch with them. You can't get them to do it. Can we do something operationally within code enforcement or within our town, powers to offer some sort of help to certain individuals that can't necessarily?
Enforcement litigation isn't always the mechanism. So say you wanted to do like a TLC crew that helps an identified class, people on a fixed income who are a certain age, who you could send a TLC crew out to assist in, that kind of yard work if there was funding for that.
Where would that fall under a TLC crew?
Currently, we have one in code enforcement. They pick up tons of garbage, things like that. Many towns have senior services division, but it costs a lot of money to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's a consideration.
Well, could you look into, though, because I always thought that common law could get changed by statutory law. So if we adopted a statute under our home rule authority, that would be controlling. Since it's not a New York State statute, it's just was brought forward as common law.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Okay.
So Michael,
Well, don't go anywhere because we have a lot of cards.
Yeah, Michael, my concerns basically was lot size, proximity to house and accessory buildings to the property lines and so on. When I built my house, the landscaper specifically said X, Y, and Z, you have to move it away from your property line. Like if you're using a licensed landscaper, they really should know what they're planting and where they're planting it. So I agree, Michael, I think we need to start not from scratch, but really go back and work on this. And it may be something that we all find a common ground on, but I think for now, there's a lot more effort needs to be put in this. but so let's do that.
But the idea, the concept is.
I think the
just great.
concept is good, but there's a lot of, are we gonna stop people from throwing the ball over the fence next? I mean, I don't know what's next. There's always a neighbor excuse, abuse of some sort, so.
We could just have a be a good neighbor law.
So I'll be happy to work with you, Michael. I think it needs some revisions.
I appreciate it.
Well, let's get some input here. Thank you, Rick. Pamela Harwood.
I'm Pamela Harwood. I'm speaking today as the president of the board of the Bridgehampton Civic. I have my own personal ideas about this, but I'm going to start with my role as the board president. And we had a member meeting last night about this and some other things, and I could not believe the incoming. So it is controversial. There are a lot of opinions. So I want to start out saying when Michael first told me about this, I was thrilled because for years now, when we were a CAC, we actually submitted, it was like a manifesto, a multi-page document of a tree resolution where we had a lot of different ideas, mainly with can the town do more planting and maintaining of trees on the public spaces and that sort of thing. The way we did when we had our pedestrian safety program along Bridgehampton Main Street. We worked with Tom Neely and Municipal Works, Christine Fenton at the time. We got a lot of trees planted that had been removed when the sidewalks were repaired. It was great, and so we wanted to build on that. But at the same time, we also had something in there. But I want to start out saying, just so we're clear, the Board of the Bridgehampton Civic Association's determination is that this resolution needs further study and rewording, followed by another subsequent public hearing before it proceeds to a vote by the town board. And it sounds like everything I'm hearing tonight, most people feel the same way. And I just want to thank Maria Moore and Councilman Iacilli for initiating some kind of discussion about this, because we first submitted our proposal, it had to be 5 or 6 years ago. No one responded to us. We then re-voted for it as a civic, and really got no traction whatsoever except for Michael and maybe the promise of maybe some help from the CPF, spending some money on CPF properties to put some money into plant trees and that sort of thing. So I do thank you for bringing it up, and even if it's not perfect right now, it's the start of a conversation that we very much need to have. And I think on a day like today, we can all appreciate the value of trees, right? A little shade. So I just want to start by saying that the resolution starts out by having a 5-foot setback. Then there's a second part to it that says no shrub planting, et cetera, shall be greater than 2 feet, planted, erected, placed, or maintained on a corner lot within a site triangle. I haven't heard anybody mention that today, and that's really important. Sagaponack already has this rule, and it's fantastic because we all know with the traffic that when you go out and you want to go on a road and there's a shrub, even I've seen it even on some grasses, that you can't see who's coming. It's very dangerous. So limiting the site triangle on a corner with what's planted there and removing it. Sagaponack made people remove everything on those locations, and people did. And it's made driving much easier there. So I think that's a little piece of this particular resolution that I think you ought to think about keeping, and we got some good support for that. The third part about it is where there's a property has been issued a permit for revegetation, and a permit has been issued, and that's done when there's an aquifer protection overlay district or wetlands and somebody clears, and they're made to revegetate and submit, and they get approval. The question came up at our meeting about, is that rewarding people who clear? That when they revegetate and the town board, the planning board says, oh, but you can put it here, here, and there, they're not made to put it back. They're not made to adhere to this, the 5-foot setback. If you got approval to revegetate, then you can revegetate according to that plan, not according to this resolution. So that's something to think about. I think that's a slippery slope. And I want to go back into a little history of our tree proposal.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll read it very quickly. You may recall that, and I started out to say this, but our section with this, we asked for actually, can you please plant the trunk of a tree? And ours was only about trees, by the way. It had nothing to do with hedges or shrubs. We wanted to have the trunk of a tree planted 50% away from the property line from what would be a mature canopy of a tree. And this comes from personal experience of me. I live on a half an acre lot in Bridgehampton. And my neighbors traditionally, way before I moved in, every tree gets planted on the property line. We are not talking about little trees. We're talking about Norwegian spruces, 50 to 75 feet tall. We're talking white pines. We're talking giant 50-feet arborvitaes. 50% of that tree is on our property, and we routinely spend $1,000 or more a year trimming them up from our property. We are gardeners. We have time for garden, if I must say, and it shades out the property. The roots interfere. We can't have the garden. The white pine needles come down. It's not just leaves being blown in. It's a big problem, and it's a huge financial hardship. And I think Michael and others, you've mentioned that tonight. And this is just not fair. And so this is less than we wanted, 5-foot setback. Now, if you have a privet that gets 20 feet wide, 5 feet is nothing. So can we have something that, can satisfy everybody? The resolution does not match our request, whereas ours was only about trees. This is shrubs, 5-foot setback. No mention of the rear property line, I notice. I don't know why that is. Of all these plant materials. This might make some sense, as many hedges are now made of green giant arborvitae, privet, you've already mentioned that, and 2 large and fast-growing hedge materials requiring expensive maintenance once they are mature, and that without proper care could extend to the sidewalk, and that's another thing. A lot of the hedges go on the sidewalk.
Excuse us, we have a-
Pamela,
You're gonna have to stop me?
Yeah, do you have that in writing by any chance that you could, do you have it in writing?
Yes, I
that you
do,
could
and I can submit it.
Oh,
I only
perfect.
have one more sentence to say, but that's okay, but I think you get my point.
Yeah.
We had a lot of pushback, mainly, I just want to say one more thing. We had a lot of pushback, mainly from people who live in the Hamlet Center and are on 1/4 acre to 1/3 of an acre lots, very narrow, and they couldn't figure out what they could do with their lot. And there must be a way of us tweaking this to give certain rights to people with those kind of properties, but on people with larger properties who can do setbacks to do the setbacks. And I just want to mention the nuisance law. There is apparently in
We
New
have a
York
lot of
State
other people who would
nuisance
like
law.
to talk tonight.
You have to submit it. I'm sorry, you're way over the 3 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. I will
Thank you.
I will submit.
So Pam, just one quick comment on that. If you do get a corner where there's obstruction, you can't see left or right, or a triangular piece of property, the highway, if it's in their easement, the highway has it within their authority to come out and remove that sight line. So if there is something in
Existing
particular.
now or
Yeah.
in the future,
If
in
it's
the code?
exist-
It exists.
Oh, sure.
We did it at Lumber Lane, when we did the stop signs at Lumber Lane
Yeah.
with Charlie, we had
Oh,
asked.
so they can already do that?
And
Okay, good.
any tree that's within the town right away is subject to be removed.
And I also, Sean, I have a question after you address that.
So provisions 2 and 3 are already existing law. We couldn't make a section inconsistent. So we already have a code section on corner clearance, and we already have various sections requiring revegetation plans, which are generally more strict than this standard.
So I
That's why those are included.
can you actually address Pamela's comment about revegetation? Is it that they're not required to follow the 5-foot buffer line, just primarily because those, if they had already been going through site plan and it was deemed appropriate before this bill, that they, like, what's the rationale?
The revegetation plans are purely within municipal home rule law, and we are setting that standard individually per site. So we could be more restrictive. In that sense, we can say you need a 10-foot buffer. you need a 15-foot buffer.
Typically revegetation plans require
That's
larger.
a lot more oversight.
Okay.
Most revegetation plan, this would probably be a better Janice question, but most revegetation plans, there's no buffer because generally they're being required to revegetate something they should have never cleared.
Right.
And it sometimes
Restore the
backs
buffer.
up to a preserve or
That's the
something
purpose.
where you want to keep a solid line of vegetation and they're planting natives so that it's
So
what's
keep the
already there.
foliage where there was
Well,
clear.
or sometimes it's with a bulkhead installation, or
I get it.
the
So-
building envelope had shifted, and things like that as well.
Thank you, Sean, for that
As
clarification.
far as the rear yard, we don't have plain view enforcement
Right. That's an
to get to the rear yard. So we can see the front and side yards, but we're only allowed on our code enforcement staff to have officers on foot, basically where a postman would go. Front door, front plane of the house, we cannot enter people's yards.
Well, it would be the neighbor would be calling about it, so they would let you on their property to see
Right.
it.
So this was the ask tonight in this piece of legislation. As I think we've all kind of alluded to, this public hearing process is the venue for this, to make changes, to kind of
Discuss.
tweak this a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Sean.
Cindy,
Thanks.
do you want to
Thank
say
you.
something? All right, Carol Corcoran.
Good evening, and first I want to thank Councilman Iacilli for bringing this up. It, has been something I've thought a lot for quite a while. My family has lived here for generations, and it has always been an unwritten rule that you do not plant something that encroaches on your neighbor's property or the town-owned buffer between your property and the roadway pavement. This has always been this way. It is just common consideration and the neighborly thing to do. A lot of good points have been brought up. One point I would also like to mention is that when the trees are planted on the property line across the road frontage, those, especially when they're planting arborvitaes, the overflow, the overgrowth of that tree pushes out toward the roadway. It interferes with the highway department mowing. It can also, it creates a totally different atmosphere. If you drive along the roads, you see older homes have a buffer always. But you will see the new homes or the remodeled homes where many, many people are putting in the line of arborvitaes and on the property line in front of their house. What happens with that trees will eventually reach out toward the pavement. It narrows the roadway. Eventually, if people plant on either side of the road, you see it all over town in Southampton, you see huge green canyons. The open space is gone. The roads are narrowed. I don't think that's very, the cumulative effect is not very aesthetically pleasing. It's a fact that trees grow, and trees grow, in the arborvitaes especially, they grow very fast. And this seems like a small, logical request, and I would like to see this passed because it does affect a lot of people. I myself spent hundreds of dollars recently cutting branches from trees in order to gain access to part of my property. I don't see, I have better things to do with my money, and it can be a real burden to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Martina Olson.
Okay, hello, Town Board. I'm Martina Olson. And I agree that maybe some kind of guidelines are needed, or like landscapers, like you said, should know, what shrubs grow. But I think a lot of people probably have a big turnover of houses around here, and they leave the place before they grow and don't care what they're planting. It can't, stop people from trying to plant on their property, but it's sort of, we have more to worry about than shrubs, but still, sometimes they grow out into the roads or the sidewalks. So that was it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Marion left, right? Gail Lombardi.
I'm glad I heard what I heard, and I feel like Michael has my house bugged because the whole conversation started with Neil, like, what is he talking about? And he was like, Gail, people can't afford to cut the trees down. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I do understand, and I appreciate the conversation, and I don't know how you fix it. It does need to be discussed, but it seems like it's like premature to have the public hearings, like 5 feet is an arbitrary number. And as far as what Sean said, I live on a flag lot. He can't see my front yard, my side yard, or my backyard. So you got to deal with flag lots, and you got to deal with pre-existing driveways, in the flag lots also, because our pre-existing driveways are only like 14 feet, whereas the new driveways are 20 feet. So you got a lot of different zonings. You know, I don't know why it's not backyard. I mean, you can't see any of my yards. So there's a lot. I do think it needs to be discussed, and I appreciate the discussion. So, but, you know, and it's good. I have nothing else to add, except that, you know, it maybe needs to be more specific or less specific. You guys decide if, you know, need input from a group, a committee, then try that, because it seems like it's a little premature. But thank you for starting the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was I think it was helpful to have the conversation, because we've gotten a lot of input, and it's clear that it can't be one size fits all.
Yeah.
But we do want to address it, so.
And we did have a work session in December on this, but I from my vantage point, I didn't think we really, it wasn't a clear direction on what next steps we were going to have.
Mhm.
So, and after we were kind of mulling it over, you know, I heard from members of the community, what's going on with it? Why aren't we moving forward? So this was logically the next step.
Yeah. And maybe it's what Pamela said about the canopy, the mature canopy of the tree. You know, so you don't have to list every tree, but what will it be when it's mature, and then you plant the root ball back that far? I don't know. Susan White?
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan White. I live in Bridgehampton. I'm also a board member with Pamela on the Bridgehampton Civic, and it's very reassuring to know that you're going to continue discussing this. My concern is about the smaller properties in the villages, and especially those that are very close to each other, where the plantings actually define the properties and separate and make for good neighbors and et cetera. So that's one concern. I hope that, it sounds like you will be bringing that into the conversation. The arborvitae issue, if those can be kept from everybody's front property lines, it would be much better for all of our neighborhoods. So thank you for that.
Can I just ask you, so when you say the smaller properties in the villages, do you mean the village district?
The areas that are just around each actual town, because the roads, the houses, the lots tend to be a little bit smaller, the houses are closer together. Generally, sometimes the houses are older, and there are a
More
lot of
historic areas.
You know, yeah, and it's
It's really the Hamlet Center, and we're talking Corwin,
Okay.
School Street.
Got it.
and you wouldn't want to get in the way of a property owner's and a gardener's desire to create
Yes.
beauty and harmony amongst.
I just want to be clear, we're not telling the villages which have their separate jurisdiction.
No.
We're not telling them what to do. Just want to make that
Properties near town centers.
Yep.
Small properties,
Yes.
even if they're in near a
Understood.
field.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But you know, certainly if somebody's got a narrow property and they're going to plant some small shrubs that aren't going to grow very large, you don't want to have to make them plant it 5 feet off the property line, because that just leaves it.
But to your point of that, for the mature, using the mature, this is why when, you know, you get into a million different questions, but to your property of the mature size, I use my neighbor as an example, planted Leland cypress 3 feet off his fence, and they never touch my fence because he prunes them twice a year, and it was his choice to plant those because they get very tall, but he keeps them narrow. So it's where it comes into like a maintenance issue more than a planting issue.
Maintenance issue is. All right, well, that's all for the cards. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak at this fourth public hearing?
I have 2 hands up.
Okay, thanks. Jim, are you yawning?
Sorry.
He's making me yawn.
My office is 85 degrees today. What's that?
Oh, hi. Am I on?
Yes, you are. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the entire board and Maria and Michael very much for moving forward and trying to understand how to put together a code. You've known many people in Noyak, where I am, have complained, and you have gotten many letters and emails, and I've spoken to a few board members directly on this topic. I had a lot to say, but because everybody's been saying it, I think we're down to the point that having these giant trees, which landscapers are telling property owners to put in and put in at the property line, it's an immediate infringement on the neighbor. And some of the people here tonight were very lucky. Their bills are only 1,000 or under, but some of us, it's 5 to 10,000, and it's not once, it can be a yearly charge. And it's outrageous. Why would it be the neighbor's problem if that neighbor chose to plant on the property line immediately, infringing on their neighbor's property? Not only is it aesthetically a problem for the neighbor's property, but it's a financial hardship. And I think it's great you're addressing it. And I think, yeah, landscapers need to be educated and respectful of the mature side of the plants. And Cindy's very lucky, her neighbor will trim, but many people are not lucky. And when the trees get very high, you're talking about tree services, not a landscaper, because you have to trim very high. But I do think the idea of having the homeowner responsible for trimming would solve it. Then you don't need to know, is it 5 feet? Is it 3 feet? Is it 10 feet? Is it 10 feet for giant trees? Is it 5 feet for a shrub? Just say the homeowner, as of now, not grandfathered in, which is unfortunate, but not grandfathered in. The homeowner now is responsible. If their tree crosses over to their neighbor, they will trim. And then it's not so complicated. And I remember having this conversation a long time ago with Fred Thiel, and I think, Sean, you might have spoken with him, because he did feel that this was something that you could make into a town code and you would not have problems. But I think you see tonight, many people are bringing this up. It's sort of straightforward. You know, it's almost like that concept of a punch. If my hand touches your face, I went over bounds. I'm not allowed to do that. And so it's the same thing. Your shrubs and trees should not now canopy over someone else's property. So, and we can educate the population, because, you know, privacy is a big deal out here. And so I have it pretty private, and many people do. So that's something we need to address as a community as you get these larger
30
trees.
seconds.
And part of their tree will go over if you plant it there. And the woman previously had stated, there was a rule that we all abided by for our neighbors. We never planted our trees or bushes close to our neighbors. They're a good 15 feet from the property line, or 10, or we trim.
Time.
But, okay, neighborly stuff needs to be enforced.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have one more. One more on Zoom.
We have 2 more people on Zoom.
Good evening. I'm Meredith Berkowitz. You're probably all sick of my face at this point from the many hearings I attend. First, I'm also a member of the Board of Directors and the Secretary of the Bridgehampton Civic Association, but this evening I'm sharing my personal thoughts on this proposal because Pamela has already covered those of the Civic. I really appreciate and thank this board for trying to address this issue, and I completely understand the financial hardship that it places, particularly on our elderly and for others who may not have the same resources to be able to deal with this. However, you're talking probably in 90% of the cases, you have neighbors being good neighbors, trimming their trees, taking care of this. So what you're really trying to legislate, it seems, is for the 10% where there's a problem. And to reiterate what some others said is, I don't agree that it's just the planting of tall trees should be forbidden, like green giants. I have green giants. I trim them, and they've never infringed on my neighbor's property line. I think it's, as everyone has said, it's really a maintenance issue, much more than a planting issue. And I appreciate that you're trying to get at this from the planting perspective to cut it off before it starts. But the 5 feet does seem sort of arbitrary, because if I want to plant a boxwood on my property line, I can't, but boxwood doesn't go anywhere, right? Or if I want to plant miscanthus, right, which doesn't really grow that wide. I I can't do it within 5 feet. And how is that even going to be enforced, right? Is code enforcement going to drive around to all these properties? I do think that the rear should be included. I don't think there's any reason not to include the rear if you're including front and side, because like other people have said, if a neighbor's complaining, you're going to be invited onto their property and you can access that rear line. Frankly, there's probably just as many issues in the rear yard as there are on the side, and maybe more so than front yards. I really like the sightline provision. I don't know if 2 feet is the right number. I defer to experts on that, but blocking the sightlines is a big problem and overgrowth. I do have some concerns about the revegetation because in reality, the planting board does often give a lot of leniency on revegetation plans, and they're not always requiring the same native plants that were removed, and sometimes they may not take consideration of the creep that the proposal for the revegetation includes. The hardest part, as I said, is the 5-foot buffer. What I wanted to say is I agree with Supervisor Moore, and maybe it's because we're both lawyers, that some sort of enforcement fine system for hedges that overgrow a property line where the owner isn't taking responsibility, maybe a code provision on the books that the owner does have responsibility to maintain it and make sure that they do trim it, and if it does creep onto somebody else's yard, that they're financially responsible for that, and to have fines if they're a repeat offender and they're not, for example, taking care of that, then maybe there should be fines, whether those are criminal or civil. I leave that up to others to decide. But I think that, again, some kind of provision that would, in a sense, give a private right of action. There is a private right of nuisance that everybody has, but a lot of non-lawyers don't know you could sue for nuisance if you have someone creeping. So all of that said, the last thing I just want to say is if it's appealable to the ZBA, we all know what that means. The ZBA hands out variances like candy, and they often do that for pools and tennis courts where they're 5-10 feet off the property. But then you're saying, okay, well, you can't plant, and the whole thing when the ZBA grants that variance is to provide screening. So how are they going to do that if they can't plant within the 5 feet? And trying to figure out how those provisions go together. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see. I mean, could be. John's going to look into it.
Forgot me.
Well, I didn't forget you. You don't have a card, but
We have one more person on Zoom.
you better get that surgery.
I don't know if I have a tendon problem. I have tendon problems in my arms and my fingers. It's a chronic problem. I just wanted to say that Ray D'Angelo, and I'm going to say I am the president of the Hampton Bay Civic Association on this. And I wish we had problems like this, about trees, trespassing on our property. We had to put up with best things, the lithium battery problem where there could be explosive, people could have lost their lives, the Bel Air Cove where we had unsafe housing and everything that could have affected them. Recently, we have also, I didn't mention before about the downtown overlay district where they wanted to put 3- and 4-story buildings. And there's a candidate in the recent special election that supported that, and he's not here tonight, I understand, right? So I just want to say, I have no feelings on this. I just think that it's going to be a mess to try to enforce this. And I know I have vicinity bushes, and they sent out runners, and they ended up on my neighbor's property, and he rips them up. And he's got stuff that goes back the other way, and I rip it up. And I can't see how you guys would get involved in that and everything. And I wish, again, as the president of the Civic in Hampton Bays, but these are the type of problems I would like to have, but we don't. We have very serious problems in Hampton Bays. And as I alluded to before, I do, getting back to, I didn't mention this before, at the church we have a drug intervention program, and we have 172 clients. And there's some issues with that. So that's a real problem as far as I'm concerned. I just wanted to get my 2 cents in here, and while we're discussing plants. But I think it's a mistake to get involved in this. Thank you.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in Hampton Bays that would be interested in it, and maybe not you, but of course there are very large issues and there are smaller issues. But everybody, I'm not having a conversation with you. I'm just saying that everybody's got, whatever it is they're focused on, that's what's important to them. So, I mean,
Supervisor, you directed your comments to me, so I feel compelled to have the right to answer. In Hampton Bays, for example, our lots are a lot small. We have 100, 100 by 100, 60 by 100. We're not the wealthy, we're not a wealthy area, So, and also, some of this comes as a hardship. They keep saying financial hardships. Hampton Bays does have financial hardship. I see it every day at the senior center. That's a real financial hardship. Thank you.
Can't wait to see you at the meeting.
well, I think we have a lot more. What?
I'd like to speak.
Who are we talking? What's happening?
I think there was somebody else on Zoom before, right?
I'm on Zoom, but I can't. I'm old, so I can't turn my
I thought he said there was
picture
only
on.
two people. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me see if I can turn my video on. Okay, I'm 80 years old, so it's hard for me, the technology. Can you see me at all, or you can't?
Yes. We can see you. What's your name?
Okay, my name is Susan Steinman, and I wanted to say something about neighborliness. I was very interested in listening to the whole conversation about how neighbors should treat each other. And I want to say something about the Shinnecock Nation, okay? These folks were here 13,000 years before any of our people. I have relatives that were the first residents in Southampton, and they were patriots, and they all fought in the Revolution, okay? So I know a little bit about the history of this country, but they were newcomers, okay? The Shinnecock have been here 13,000 years.
Are you, excuse me, are you speaking
I'm talking about zoning.
Are you talking about the public hearing that we're in the midst of
Yes,
discussion
I'm
on the
talking
trees?
about zoning. Somebody mentioned in the course of their testimony, and I'm responding to that, does the Shinnecock want to build this, and isn't it terrible, and so on. And I want to emphasize that on the reservation, which is the Shinnecock Nation, they have a right to build anything on their land. It's their land. Enough of their land was taken away, okay? The Shinnecock Hills was their land. Most of the town of the Hamptons was their land, okay? A lot of their land was almost all the way to the Mastics and Shirley was their land. And now people are trying to tell them what they can or cannot do with Westwoods. Nobody can zone indigenous land. It's immoral, it's wrong, it's following the doctrine of discovery and the same kind of thing that has been done to the indigenous people for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I'm saying to you, there has to be morality here. It's not a question of what you have a right to do or what you can finagle. They are a very poor nation. They need income, okay? So they proposed a number of things that were all turned down, each one, by the town. And the town feels that it can tell them, and it's taken them to court many, many times, rather than being a neighbor to them, cooperating with them, working it out with them. There's been no neighborliness with them. And that's what I'm trying to say. I've heard a lot of wonderful things here about being a good neighbor. And I'm asking you, as a town board, to please be a good neighbor to the Shinnecock. Stop taking them to court, work with them, cooperate with them, and stop trying to take more of their land.
Time.
Thank you. Okay. Well, if no one else has any other comments about this, then, but we do have a lot of work to do on it.
So, yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, I just want to say that I respect those on the board that don't agree with this bill. I recognize your concerns. I recognize the concerns of those that have emailed the town board with certain specific issues. Thank you. I hope that today clarifies some of the various issues that you may have had, because I think there was some misunderstanding of the goal and the purpose of this legislation. But that said, I'm looking to work with the board on this. I want to be able to, gather thoughts and ideas and make this something that is viable for the future of everyone. So what I'd like to do, if you're the co-sponsor here, so if you agree, I'd like to maybe keep this open for another cycle, and then we can close it.
Well, if we put it over to like the July 22nd meeting, that would give us time to see if there's some kind of a compromise.
Would you want to have a
language
work
that's
session instead of
acceptable.
continue the public hearing that's not going to be moving forward as is and have to be renoticed anyway?
Well, we did a work session last year, and this is sort of like what the fruits of that labor. We heard that from some people today that there's some agreement with the approach. Perhaps there could just be some tweaks. Sean, as the town attorney on this, do you think, could we make tweaks to this and it remain the same legislation?
So you're going to have to renotice anyways. I usually recommend closing with a 14-day written comment period. So anyone who didn't comment tonight could submit written comments, and then you can consider that in crafting. If you want to keep it open and then close to the next meeting and do that, but you want a finite date to cut off so you can start crafting whatever you will move forward as a board.
I would just suggest starting with putting this in possibly the property maintenance code and out of the zoning code. And having it something that would go before the ZBA, because
I'm happy to. So if we close it, how long can we do an extended time frame for comments?
You can choose whatever time.
We do 4 weeks.
Yeah, you want to do a month, 30 days?
Can we do a month? Let's do. We'll close it and we'll
Up to the
accept
board.
comments for about a month.
If we close it, does that mean we don't make any change? It doesn't mean you can't make changes to it.
No.
That's the whole point,
We're going
right?
to renotice whatever the board
Well,
would like to move.
Yeah, but like with Best, like we went
make
through everything
substan-
line by line, right?
If you end up making substantial changes, then you'll have to re-notice it and have a new hearing. If it's minor changes, then you won't necessarily need to have a new hearing. That's it.
Right, this was noticed for a 5-foot buffer, so it was pretty specific.
Yeah, we might be taking that out, but.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some things that are taken out of this that are substantial. So
We
I'm
probably
gonna-
end up doing it.
Yeah, I'm going to close and leave a month.
Okay, great.
Notice. And
Decide
that
what
gives,
you want
that
to do
gives
from there.
people the time to either write us, or they could also come to a public portion and express their viewpoints if they'd like. So it gives
And they'll
everybody
have the
time.
chance again. once
Yes,
we
when it comes
introduce.
up on the agenda, right? They'll have
Yep.
they'll have a chance to come and tell us what they'd like us to
That's
do with it. So yeah,
We
we'll-
have to-
Tell them you told them.
We have to do some, more.
some discussion.
In the
yeah,
meantime,
yeah.
too, we won't
Absolutely.
just wait the month.
Yeah, so Sean, you heard from a lot of.
Yeah,
the
I got
folks,
some
and-
good feedback,
Okay.
and we can start meeting and drafting again.
Great, and I will make sure that the whole board is included on any of those updates.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks. So I move to close the public hearing and leave the record open for written comments for 30 days.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just to be clear, the speaking of public portion does not connect it to this public hearing.
Correct.
What?
So they have to submit the
Correct.
comment for this hearing, but coming at another board meeting and speaking at public portion doesn't accomplish that.
But they could. They could speak at a
We
public
can't
portion.
take the
Oh, but it's
video
not
and
part of
stick
the
it into the
record.
file, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I
You
hear
know,
what
it
you're
has to
saying.
be submitted.
But they
to us.
could submit the emails.
Of course, yes, but I'm just saying if coming and speaking is not, at a public portion is not going to.
Be part of the record.
Right, exactly.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the public portion part of the meeting. I have several cards. The first is Gail Lombardi.
They said if we're going to make my poor partner drag us down here, I get my money's worth. I have to agree with Ray D'Angelo, though, and I appreciate about the tree thing. I get it's a quality of life issue. But Ray and I have been at this for over a decade, just about. And, we go back to, the illegal use of the motels, the Bel Air when it was being misused. CBs, I don't know if you remember the whole gang situation at CB's and, and it was just awful. I mean, we have been through the ringer in Hampton Bays. So when we get to the point that the most important thing that we're talking about is tree placement, I think both of us would be very happy. So that being said, we are in a situation where, again, I appreciate this board looking at a bunch of different things, but all of the development is concerning to me, and including the Westwoods development. And so I was, as a person that had lived my life with a good portion of my career was billable hours. And I hate to say what my billing rate was 20 years ago. When I heard $1,200, I wasn't horrified, I have to say, because 20 years ago, our national partners billed in at $1,200. So I can't imagine what they're billing in today. But it's awful. It's absolutely awful that these are the rates that attorneys are charging, and I'm hoping that you guys are looking at those in detail and not being taken advantage of as a municipality. However, I go back, to the overdevelopment in Hampton Bays. And while I am very sympathetic to the Shinnecock Nation, and I see some people here, and their need for economic development, I'm also very sympathetic to the fact that, going back to the Bianca case, when they were still talking about the casino, it would be almost like catastrophic effect on Hampton Bays. So while I'm sympathetic, I expect the sympathy to be on both sides, in that, it's very important that the town board protect the rest of the Hampton Bays collectively, because we would be all of Hampton Bays. I'm not a Westwoods resident. I'm not a Newtown Road resident. But again, Ray and I got involved way back. And so we didn't come here because we're a bunch of NIMBYs. I didn't file the lawsuit on the HBDOD because I was a neighboring property. I thought it was the best interest of Hampton Bays. And that is where my heart is. That's why we come to these meetings. And I think Westwood's development, along with all the other potential development in Hampton Bays, is an issue. And I think you guys really need to take another hard look, the secret hard look of what's going on in Hampton Bays and put in perspective. And hopefully, we could try and potentially put a moratorium on commercial development along the Montauk Highway corridor and come to some reasonable, way we could get through the streets and, get into stores and do all the other things and park and do all the things we need to do to live in Hampton Bays. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Peter Sherman.
Peter Chorman, Hampton Bays. It's regarding Westwood. First of all, a little bit about myself. I study Aboriginal rights and ancient cultures. It's a passion of mine. So around the world, this year I visited 4 areas around the world just to sympathize and understand people's rights and help in their path forward through those. On the other side of the coin, I'm a registered architect over 40 years in New York. And I understand what the zoning says and how it applies to how property is owned over time. And to me, it's clear that the zoning does apply. I do sympathize, as I said, with the Shinnecock Nation especially, and I'm willing to help in any way I can to assist with where I can. I've spoken to Brian Polite before. Anyway, I support the continued legislation because I believe it's the right thing, and that's the thing within myself, like I said, trying to support rights as well as what the zoning says. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Lynn Murcott. What about Gail? She's not going to pass.
She's the nice one.
Who said that? You, Bill? Gail Marcotte, Hampton Bays. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the board members who have approved the lawsuit going forward. I know you spent 3 hours, I think, last week or something in court. We appreciate that also. Like most people who the woman that came on and spoke, I don't know exactly where she lives, but I know she doesn't live where we live. She doesn't live my property, backs Westwoods. As far as we've always known, and I've said it here before, Westwoods is not their property. Now, that's not up to me to determine, but it's up to somebody to prove to me that it is, because it never has been as far as we know. They've traded it. There's a toppings deed in the 1600s. The land doesn't belong to them anymore, and if somebody determines that it does, then certainly it's under regulation of the town. Building on that property, and we know that even the parking situation as of last week or whatever, that's just the start of what's happening here. You know, the nation says we can do whatever we want here, and the town is saying, no, you can't. We appreciate the fact that the town has the lawsuit going. So far, we've been successful in, every step of the way. Okay, I mean, I look forward to the day when this is finally resolved and resolved for good, and I can go back to being retired and enjoying my life. But aside from that, I think that the people who speak in favor of that don't live here, don't live next to it, and certainly if it was in their backyard, and as I said, my property backs Westwoods, if it was in their backyard, they would not want to see a travel plaza or a casino, years of building, dust, the trucks and everything else. We don't want to see that. I think that's understandable to anyone. And again, I want to thank the town board, those of you that are in favor of continuing with this, because I think the bottom line here is all of us need an answer and a resolution to what goes on here. A lot of people in Hampton Bays don't even realize what they're looking at. We have roads now that you can't move. 5 o'clock, even here, coming in and out of Southampton, you can't even move. You add a casino to that, and nobody will leave their houses at all. So, and I do not believe, I would like to help the nation succeed in whatever, they want to, but in the right place. And that's not here in Hampton Bays. We can't afford that. The backing, as far as, we've taken everything from them.
30
They
seconds.
need the money and everything else. They have backers with much more money than we've ever seen in our lifetime. It's not just them, and we're taking money from them to go forward with this. They got backers on this. Everybody knows that. So I thank you for your time, and again, I thank you on the board for the people who support this lawsuit, and to keep going forward until we have an answer for the community. Gotcha.
Thank you.
I just want to, for the record, Ms. Merka, I welcome your comments as usual. I just want to say you mentioned that the property is not theirs. I just want to mention that there is a distinction between sovereignty of the property and ownership, and I know the courts are figuring all that out, right? I just want to say that they do own that property, though. So I just want to clarify for the record that that is the case.
And I just want to clarify, Michael, that that's what you believe. That's not what I believe. I don't believe that they own the property. I believe that they traded the property. My family's been here 100 years. You can tell me they've been here for thousands. We have always been up, used that property and everything else. When I was a kid, there was no one else up there. So you believe, but you don't have anything to substantiate that. There is a topping deed which says that they traded the land.
No,
and many other
Ms.
lawsuits.
Marcotte, and listen, I don't want to get into a back and forth. I respect that we disagree, but that is a fact that they own it. Now, in terms
No,
of
I don't think it's a fact. I think you believe it's a fact. I don't. So you're right. We don't want to get into.
All right.
I have a right to.
You have a right to disagree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And now I'm over the 30 seconds.
Tom, you'll have to tell me how you pronounce your last name. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Hi. I'm Tom Oleszczuk.
Oleszczuk.
That's a complicated Polish-Ukrainian name, but we've been here, 4 generations. Anyway, all right. I signed up to to actually speak in general about the same project from the other point of view. Okay, Westwood and the development project there. Okay, but let me step back from that for a moment to give you a sort of a specific perspective here in this room, in this building. Okay, outside there are 3 big plaques with lots of names over the course of the last several decades. I'd like you to read the last one. The town of Southampton gratefully acknowledges and appreciates the following individuals and organizations for their participation toward the preservation of open space and farmland, its rich scenic cultural value, and the overall quality of life within the town of Southampton, Suffolk County, New York. Okay, now nothing in there that says you can't build, but what it does say is we have farmland, we need to preserve it. We have open spaces, we need to preserve it. Okay, Westwood's forest. Okay, but that's just one thing. The second thing is you look around here and you see photos and small descriptions of construction projects supported by the board. Okay, you know, such things as a solar project and you know, life-saving station and workforce housing. Okay, the town board is not opposed to building that contributes. Okay, that's sort of the second thing I'd like to mention. The third thing is right behind you, there are seals. And I'd like to read to you the top row, starting over here, the commonality of Southampton town. That's the trustees, the folks that have a responsibility essentially for, you know, the seashore lands and the like. The village of Southampton, that's where we are now. Right next to it, the state of New York. Right next to that is the first English settlement in the state of New York, town of Southampton, seal.
30
and
seconds.
Right next to that is the seal of the Shinnecock Nation. All the other villages and such are below. What this suggests is that at some level, the town and the state recognize the importance of the Shinnecock Nation, historically and as a community. Now, it also happens to be the poorest community of any in this county. Okay, you take a look at, you know, in census figures, and a huge percentage, something like 40 or 50% of the people that live on the reservation are below poverty levels. Okay, we have billionaires here. You know, the average income, I don't know exactly what it is, but I would you know, venture that it's at least average 75 to 100,000. And yet we have in our midst, we have people living very, very poor, tough lives. Okay. Now, the Westwood project represents an attempt to pull up the community by its bootstraps. Okay. This is not the first time that others outside of the Shinnecock Nation have said, oh, we don't want this. We don't want this. Okay. If you look back 60 years ago, actually it's probably 40. Yeah, it's probably 60 years ago. There was opposition to putting up tobacco stores along Montauk Highway on the reservation. There was opposition to that. We don't want it. You know, it's going to be terrible. And yet, it was an attempt. It was an attempt to pull up by loose. It didn't, you know, it didn't take off in the way that it could have. But it's something that I think the town board has to consider.
Tom,
That is to
please
say-
wrap it up. You're way over the 10
Okay,
minutes.
all right. So anyway, I would urge the town board to actually reconsider the legal action and try and come together with that fourth unit on the wall. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Heidi Rain. Looks like Rain.
Hello, I'm Heidi Rain, or Heidi Rain Leschuk, or Heidi Leschuk. I'm a lot of things. But I also am a resident of Southampton. My husband and I lived here for 13 blissful years. This is paradise on earth, and I think everyone in this room knows that. Everyone out here knows that. It's not a secret. And I think we need to cherish that. I think you're doing a great job of caring for all the people in Southampton. I could tell by the way you're discussing things and tending to the people's needs, which is what needs to be done. And I love that kind of leadership. I wish it could broaden. I wish we could take our neighborliness and extend it, not to just all the people who have committees and pancake breakfasts, but to the reservation, to the Shinnecock, to what's happening there, and to learning how we can be better neighbors, because I think we can. And as we start being better neighbors, there's a lot the Shinnecock can teach us. The Shinnecock share their trees because their trees are their relations. And I think if we started to think about our trees as our relations, we wouldn't fight about who's going to support the tree to be healthy. I'm just saying, let's broaden and start going into a level of truth that we really...
I'm sorry. Ray and Gail, if you want to have a conversation, you got to go outside because they were respectful when you spoke. You need to be respectful when they speak. Thank you.
I think we need to widen not only our sense of neighborliness, but our sense of truth. We need that in this country now. And this is a strong community, a very strong community. And I think we could be leaders in truth. And truth is knowing our history, not just all the history of all the colonial things you see, but the deep history. I don't think we've gotten deep enough into the deep history, which is the Shinnecock people. And there are Shinnecock people there ready to educate you, any of you, at any time, to have a town board meeting on various aspects of Shinnecock culture. Bring the town together. We need an example of that in the world. And we can learn more from the Shinnecock. We can learn to be better people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Ray D'Angelo.
Okay, just to change the subject here. Ray D'Angelo, Hampton Bays. The point I was going to talk about is the clear cutting that goes on in Hampton Bays and the lack of any kind of ordinance to prevent that from going on. And what's unseen, it's unprecedented, the amount of trees that are being cut down, because there's also a lot of development going on in Hampton Bays, and they clear cut everything. And right on my block, I was just, I guess it's maybe 3/4 of an acre, maybe not even 3/4 of an acre. And I can't go in the back of the property, but they took down 32 trees in the front and probably maybe 20 in the back. And these were big diameter trees. So I think there should be some type of ordinance to prevent this from going on. I mean, these trees are important. They're the first line of defense that filter our water, and we live on top of our water. And also, they're the habitat for various birds and stuff which we all enjoy, and that's why we came out here. So right now we have no. Ryan Murphy, we had him at our meeting, said there's no other than like the Aquifer Overlay District or in the Africa. I might be wrong. That there is no control over taking down trees, and I think it's badly and very important. I think we need it. I mean, it shouldn't be that they come in and they clear cut every tree, every living tree on the property. And right now we have nowhere to protect us about this.
So, right, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but at the last meeting, Councilmember Iacilli put forth a proposed law just on that, should limit the tree clearing. But it was met with some issues, and again, so it's something we need to work on, and we've got a meeting planned with our land use administrator.
Yeah, we have some work being done to it. We're going to get some input from some of our departments, and we will reintroduce it for a work session, and we hope that you pay attention to that, and I'll make sure you're informed of the steps that are taken.
Because we know it's an issue, but it's a complicated one to address, so.
I'm sure it is. everything's complicated.
I know, right?
You know, I'm still aghast about the 5 foot with the bushes and everything.
Well, see, just like tree clearing's important to you, that's an important
Well,
issue to someone
this is a
else.
big item, and you know, this is a big item because, again, if you see what goes on, you know, one day there's like a forest there, and the next day there's nothing.
So I did call each of one of my colleagues. I did call you as well. And I said that I was withdrawing the resolution until those changes are made. And I think everybody is aware that we're working on this. And yeah.
Now, I just, in the interest of giving like a shout out for the Civic Association, on July 1st, which is Tuesday, we're going to be honoring the Southampton Animal Shelter. Got the proclamation, you know, I guess.
We'll get a certificate.
And we're gonna have from 6 to 7. It's going to be the adoption van there. So if anybody wants to come, it's interested in adopting a cat, a dog. They also have rabbits. They can come, and
30 seconds.
Our meeting will start at 7 o'clock. Okay, then I got that in there. All right.
Thank
Thank you.
Very much. Sorry, I'm slow moving.
Take your time. Lance Gumps.
Akame Nik Patel, Kisak, Kigawat, Natanawis, Tapias, Nashanawonk. Good evening, Town Board. I'm here tonight because the Shinnecock Nation and our chairwoman sent 2 letters to the Town Board requesting the removal of our tribal seal. We tried to do that in private so that it wouldn't be public. Now I'm here at a public hearing to publicly request the removal of our town seal. We are no longer going to participate in this town and the things that they are doing. It has become abundantly clear to the nation that we are not respected as a government, as a nation, and we no longer want to deal with the hypocrisy that people talk about. Being good neighbors, that's a joke. We've been the good neighbors for 400 years. We have discussed this within our community, and it is clear that there is a great disdain in this town for the Shinnecock people, the Shinnecock Nation, and as such, we are respectfully requesting that our seal be removed. We are also requesting, since you talk about zoning and you talk about codes, we are requesting that the town of Southampton follow its own code. There was supposed to be a 30-foot buffer between the Shinnecock Westwoods territory and the Quail Run residents over there. It is in your codes, it is on a map, and yet that has not taken place. It did not take place, and as a result, there is encroachment by our so-called neighbors on our territory, and we are respectfully asking the town of Southampton to follow its own codes and to deal with the encroachment upon our tribal lands. And to those who think that those lands do not belong to us, it will be proven. It is coming. We are coming. We are not going away. 13,000 years we have been here, and we will be here. And we are not going to sit back and watch the encroachment upon our lands continue and that you come to us and talk about zoning. It's abundantly clear to us after this last fiasco with us being told that we could not park cars for the staff of an event that we were holding, that this board has systematically come to the conclusion that they are going to try to deny us every form of economic development that the tribe tries to do. And that is unacceptable. That was a complete slap in the face to the nation for that ridiculous letter that was sent to our partners saying that we could not park staff cars on our tribal lands. There was no infringement. It wasn't on Newtown Road. It was on our land. Staff cars. and you say to us, we should speak, we should talk, we should be good neighbors, you all need to look in the mirror. We are no longer tolerating this nonsense. And then now we get another letter from the town saying that our partners need to pay $20,000. We didn't have a contract with them. We didn't have a contract with Mr. Murphy. There was no discussion about you utilizing Southampton College with a hazmat team. There was nothing to the nation or to the Palm Tree Music Festival folks. Yet you send a letter out requesting $20,000. You wait for that to happen.
Well,
The things that have transpired here are unacceptable. And trust me when I tell you, the Shinnecock Nation is no longer going to tolerate it. So what happened in federal court the other day, be prepared, because it's coming. Thank you.
Just a minute, please. I will say that we don't, with respect to the seal, Jim spoke with Chairwoman Gore and said that we were sending a letter, and I just signed a letter today that on behalf of the town, in response to your recent request that the seal of the Shinnecock Nation be removed from display in the town hall meeting room and delivered to the nation, I want to begin by acknowledging the long, proud history of the Shinnecock people in this region. Your enduring cultural contributions and presence are an inseparable part of Southampton's identity. We understand and regret that you feel that the town has not honored your sovereignty. While we may differ in our interpretations of certain legal and jurisdictional matters, I assure you that the town remains committed to maintaining a relationship rooted in mutual respect, dignity, and continued dialogue. I mean, you told me once before, you said, I know you're doing what you feel like you need to do. And I think that what we're doing with the litigation is merely, to get a determination from the court. That's it, and I regret that it seems to be interpreted as a lack of respect for the nation as a whole. It's really a dispute regarding this one parcel. And the letter goes on to say that the seal of the Shinnecock Nation was placed in our meeting room alongside the seals of our incorporated villages to acknowledge the historic and contemporary presence of the Shinnecock people within the boundaries of the town. It's meant as a visible sign of inclusion and recognition. We believe it serves as a symbol of the open door that the town maintains towards the Shinnecock Nation and its citizens who are also citizens of Southampton and New York State. The town of Southampton continues to recognize the sovereignty of the Shinnecock Nation at Shinnecock Neck, which is subject to federal jurisdiction. But at the same time, the town, like the state of New York, exercises jurisdiction over the lands and people within its boundaries as defined under state and federal law. While our views on specific land claims may not align, we remain committed to constructive paths forward. And in that spirit, we would like the seal to remain in its current place in Town Hall, where it stands not only as a tribute to the Shinnecock people, but also as a symbol of our willingness to engage and work cooperatively on issues that affect all of our communities. We hope that the Shinnecock Nation will continue to engage in dialogue, and we remain open to any future discussions which you may wish to initiate. So that's how we feel, and I really regret that the lawsuit was taken in a broader, as being viewed differently than that. It really is the issue of the Westwoods and how it's held and whether the zoning of the town applies. And I don't know about the bill that was sent. I know Ryan Murphy, our public safety administrator, was involved in conversations about police and, EMS services, so I can't speak to that.
I can't speak to the bills specifically, but I can speak to the fact that our public safety and our police department were actively engaged with the Palm Tree Festival people to make sure that people were safe going to and leaving that festival. They worked with them. They revised the safety plan 5 times before the festival to make sure that the safest protocols were in place, to make sure that the nation had that festival on the reservation and made sure that people were safe. Yes, hazmat was at the college in case, God forbid, there was an emergency and we needed a response. When Northwell couldn't provide enough ambulances, Hampton Bay's volunteers came and transported. They had protocols and people in place to make sure that your festival went off flawlessly. And I know that you all did a lot of work to make sure that happened as well. And it's partnerships like this to make sure that things happen, to make sure that people are safe going to and leaving the reservation for these festivals, and they feel free to go and enjoy themselves at these festivals because they know they will be protected both on and off of the reservation when going to and coming from these events, that we partner together and make these things happen.
There was no partnership, number one. Number two, your town board, your town facilities was not asked for. We had 107 state troopers, which is required by New York State to provide, to be provided for us. We weren't asking the town for anything. So to come back with a bill when there was no discussion about that or any of that is unacceptable, no matter how you want to try to spin it. Number two, I appreciate your letter. The letter has a lot of things in there that in a different time, in a different place, in a different space would have meaning to us. But it has absolutely no meaning to us at this point in time, with all due respect. We are not going to leave our seal here. That has been discussed numerous times with our people and with our council. And so however you all perceive what has transpired here, it is basically an act of war against the Shinnecock Nation. And that's how we perceive it. That is how we're looking at it. That is how we're taking it. So I understand that there is this belief, but it didn't start here. And I think that's where the big disconnect comes. It started when he was talking about the tobacco stores. It started with the town coming after us for the cigarette stores. It started with the town and the signs. We can go down this list of things that where the town has systematically come against the nation. And so when you say, now it's this one incident, no, it's a cumulative effect of all of the things that the town has done. And it's not this board, previous boards, but at the current point in time, it is this board. And so when we're looking at it from our perspective, and we have long-term memories, we don't have short-term memory. When we're looking at it from our perspective and and really analyzing all the things that have been done over the course of this time, you talk about our land, 1859, 3,900 acres was stolen from us, stolen outright with fraudulent signatures. So when we look at all of these things and we look at this long history, it has been a history against our nation, against our people in all forms. So we have reached that point where we're saying no more. And so, to the sisters, I saw them in, Home Depot. We had a long discussion. But the reality of the situation is that land has never been out of our hands, and we intend to move forward with every single one of the projects that we're doing. And there will not be any further discussion with the town. That's, a directive from our people. Just like you have your constituents and you have to listen to them because you're voted in by them, we're also voted in our community, in a governmental election, just like you have, by our constituents, and they're tired. We're all tired of the treatment that we have received from this town for 400 years, not just this particular incident. The thefts of our land, the encroachments upon our land, the use of our waterways, where we're challenged with even doing subsistence fishing and rights that we have going back to these so-called deeds and patents that you talk about. We look at all of these things, and so it's a cumulative effect of all of the things that has happened to us, and we're tired. And with all due respect, you have your job to do, we have our job to do. And Mr. Murphy put us in a great position. So, and I didn't give my name. I'm Lance Gums. I'm the vice chairman of the Shinnecock Nation, and I'm also the vice president for the National Congress of American Indian for the entire Northeast region here. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Lance. All right. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for public portion?
I have two hands up.
Good evening again. I'm Meredith Berkowitz from the Bridgehampton Civic Association. I actually was going to speak during the public portion on MRTA, but I want to go back for 1 second on the tree proposal. I was wondering if it might be possible, given that there's so much public input, if maybe it would make sense for some kind of town hall Q&A, because it feels like maybe the public has a lot of questions, and a back and forth where you could submit written questions and have those answered might be something that's helpful. Going back now to what I came to talk about during the public portion, I want to talk about murder, and coincidentally, someone else spoke about it earlier tonight in connection with a different public hearing. But we've been talking a lot about it because it was a situation where, by doing nothing, the prior town supervisor effectively made a choice, along with some of the council members at that time, that has impacted us all, and it wasn't done correctly. There should have been a hearing. There was a lot of public opposition. I did a FOIL request. There were a lot of letters, a lot of members of the public who spoke against it, or at least asked and begged, to be honest, the supervisor to adopt a wait and see attitude, as you could always opt in later to the MRTA and to just wait and see what happened and to understand all of the regulations, which weren't final at that time. But he chose not to, and he forced it through as one of his last efforts here at Southampton as the town supervisor. And so despite the written public opposition, they deliberately and intentionally suppressed a public input on it, and have now put us in the position that we are, where you're seeing a lot of communities frustrated and objecting to the fact that it's the unincorporated hamlets that didn't have their own control over land use that couldn't opt out, because he made the decision for them. And that's unfortunate, but that is why there's a lot of frustration. And from our end in the Civic Association, we wanted to raise again the question of, is there something we can do about it? We understand from Fred Thiel that there is a way to petition New York State to ask that this be reconsidered. And we're wondering I think we came here once before to ask the same thing, if there would be support on the town board, this town board, for helping us to do that and to try and unwind this terrible situation that we find ourselves in. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think when Assemblyman Thiel said that, he was talking about petitioning the state to change the law, not to just reverse this town's decision.
I think, well, we could clarify that for you, but we had a conversation with him, Pamela and I did, and in that conversation, he seemed to think there was a way that we could ask, because of the way it was adopted without a public hearing, that we might be able to ask the New York State Legislature, petition them to allow us to to change the situation, a special exception, I think he called it. I can go back to my notes and send you something in writing of exactly what he said.
Because I believe Councilmember Iacilli reached out to our new assemblyman and asked that question, and
well, unfortunately, our new assemblyman was one of the people on that board who was sitting right by Jay's side, pushed it through without a public hearing.
Well,
So
you know what,
they-
it didn't
they wanted
get, my understanding, and of course I wasn't here, but I thought that the deadline, just if you don't take action before the end of the year, then you're deemed in. So
That's
I don't
right, but
think
there-
I don't think a resolution was actually passed. I think just.
No,
the
there wasn't,
deadline
and that's how
expired.
they got around a public hearing, is that by not doing anything and not taking action, they technically didn't have to hold a public hearing, right? But there was a lot of public opposition, and a lot of other municipalities in Long Island in particular held those public hearings, even if they weren't going to opt out and did opt in. They still gave the public a chance to speak, and they took input. But that board, Tommy John and Jay together, really wanted this and wanted this for the tax dollars, and have sort of foisted it upon all of us who are now bearing its consequences while they're now both gone. So, it doesn't surprise me that he would say that there's little support for that, but
Well, if you have something from Assemblyman Thiel, you please send it and we'll take a
I would
look
love
at
to.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We will.
It wasn't determined that there was little support for it. I just want to clarify, since the supervisor mentioned that I reached out to Assemblyman Scavone, I also included Senator Palumbo as well. It wasn't that there wasn't support for it, it's just that there is a process involved with it, and if the town would have to really expressly consider that process, I just don't know if we have had the discussion to really embark on that process.
I thought what they said was the process would be the state would have to change the law to say that, now the law says if you do not opt out in that first year, you cannot opt out going forward. So we would have to have them change the law to say, now you can opt out whenever you choose. And I don't know, I don't think the state will do it because they're looking at the revenue.
Yes, right. They would need to gain some sort of majority approval in the state to move ahead, but does the town really want to push our representatives to do it, was the question that Mr. Scavone did relate to the board. I don't think he said that there would be no support, although I think one can conjecture that there probably wouldn't be.
Okay, if I said that, then I misspoke.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what she sends us. Kevin, was there someone else to bring on?
Yes, we have two more people.
Hi.
Hi, can everyone see me?
Yes.
All right, good evening. I'm Diana Adams and I live in Hampton Bays. And I'd like to thank you for the time and resources you have dedicated to clarifying your legal authority and responsibilities related to Westwoods. I think that what sometimes gets lost in the discussion, but has been made very clear tonight, is that there is legal uncertainty over the town's obligations with respect to Westwoods, and that you need to take steps to clarify what those are. And there has been discussion of the cost of doing so. But when considering the costs, you have rightly also considered the costs of not doing so. For example, the Chief Marshal of the Southampton Fire Department has stated that his department has not been involved in assuring the fire safety of the gas station. This despite the fact that the Southampton Fire Department would be called on to fight any future fires at the gas station. The fire department did not ensure that the proper materials were used when the gas tanks were buried to minimize the risk of leaks. The fire department did not test the delivery piping to ensure that the risk of ground contamination was adequately addressed. Neither the marshal nor any of our firefighters know whether there is a water main with a fire hydrant at the gas station to provide access to sufficient water in case of fire. The fire marshal stated that installation of flammable liquids or gas without obtaining the approval of the fire department is inherently dangerous because gasoline is highly flammable and can easily ignite. Given the close proximity of the gas station to the neighbors' homes, the fire marshal also opined that there's a risk of fire or spillage directly into their backyards. I mean, all of this is what the fire marshal said, not what I'm saying. Now, you already know, and that, but others might not be fully aware, that there is a cost of your doing nothing, and that the cost of your doing nothing might be high. It might be counted in human lives. So, I just want to say that, oversight and assuring the safety of the citizens of Southampton is your responsibility. And I think that that's been acknowledged tonight by both sides. Every side has to do what they have to do, what they're legally required to do. And I thank you once again for diligently exercising your duties. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more person.
Hi, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you to the board and thanks to those listening. My name is Matt Bessel. I live on Matinacock land. I was born on Long Island, so I'm a native Long Islander. I'm 65 years of age and I'm an elder. And I would just like to say, as a 6'3" Caucasian gentleman living on this island, that basically what we heard tonight, to me, breaks my heart. That the indigenous people that have lived on this land for 13,000 years, I was taught at Huntington schools back as a kid that they lived here for 3,000 years. They've lived here for 13,000 years. And I ask the board and those who heard Mr. Gum speak to realize what you have been asked, to remove their seal from your walls. This is a very serious request. And I feel that we have, especially those of us who are of European ancestry, people like Charlemagne, who 1,000 years ago rode his horse and led his people. And we view him as a great leader and a Christian. And basically, that was 1,000 years ago. What Southampton and its people are being asked, to my heart, is to listen to the indigenous people of this land that welcomed our European ancestors to this land, this Paumanok. And I really think the lawsuit needs to be reconsidered. Maybe if you humble yourselves and begin to speak with your neighbors, the Shinnecock, who have lived here for 13,000 years, in a way where they can understand and see that you want to work with them in a good way to honor and let them use the land that they have owned for 13,000 years. That would deeply, perhaps, help heal this. My heart hurts, and I feel for the people of Long Island, the people of Southampton, and for the Shinnecock. To hear Mr. Gums mention the word war touches my heart deeply, but they are exhausted by the European American impact on their people. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, is there anyone else?
No one else on Zoom.
Well, thanks everyone for your comments. I move to close public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move forward with the resolution.
Town Board Resolution 2025-823, authorize supervisor to sign contract with LK.
Believe me, I'm not against you. I'm not.
Okay, continue, Bill. Thank you.
L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey, DPC, provide construction support and construction inspection for the service of the interseptic improvement of Tuckahoe Road at Sabonic Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Authorize supervisor to sign contract with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer to survey to provide professional engineer service for traffic study and intersection of Old County Road and Vale Avenue in East Quogue.
Second, and Bill, on this, I just want to thank you for putting this forward. This has come up in East Quogue for stop signs here for years when I was on the chair in the CAC, and I'm happy that Charlie is actually looking into this.
Yes, actually, that's a bad corner, because I remember Vale Corner when my wife had the deli.
Charlie's actually done a lot of things in East Quogue, so it's much appreciated.
Did you second that, Cindy?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-825 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with LK McLean Associates Engineering and Surveying, DPC, to provide professional services related to the Town Hall Masonry Restoration Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-826 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Source Pass Contemporary LLC to provide engineering support services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 827 of 2025, authorize supervisor to sign catering contract for a senior services holiday party.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 828 of 2025, authorize supervisor to sign contract amendment with Passport Labs, Inc. to furnish and install integrated parking management.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-830 to authorize the purchase of door and closer repairs with Eastern Door and Hardware, Inc., using the Suffolk County contract.
We skipped one.
I'll go back. Finish this one.
What?
We'll finish this one, and then we're
Oh,
gonna go
all
back.
in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who was the second on this?
Myself.
Town Board Resolution 829 of
Sorry,
2025, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, authorized supervisor to sign a media license agreement with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology to provide photographs of bird species to create interpretive signage.
Second.
All in
Ooh,
favor?
and may I be added to that?
Second too.
Oh, put us all on.
Sorry, thank you.
Signage?
Thank you for introducing that, but that's really great. Wow.
Yeah.
You can hang them up on my wall. Town Board Resolution 2025.
We didn't vote. We didn't vote, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025, it's been a long night. 831, authorize the purchase of ground maintenance equipment and solution from Mavizi Equipment Corp., Inc., using Sourcewell contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-832 to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Questica Software, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 833 of 2025, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Nursing Sisters Home Care, DBA Catholic Home Care, to provide expanded in-home services for the elderly program to town of Southampton residents.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 834 of 2025, authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Municipal Valuation Services, Inc. to provide individual sales ratio studies.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-835 to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Thompson Reuters to provide Westlaw Precision online subscription services for the town attorney's office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Town Board Resolution 2025-836. I'd like to table this. We're going to have a work session on it this Thursday on the 26th, and so I'll table it to July 8th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-837 to declare items surplus and authorize disposal of vehicles and equipment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-838, co-sponsored by Councilmember Iacilli. The 2025 notice to bidders for Southampton Animal Shelter kennel replacement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Sunday, could I be added to that since I
Myself, too.
started that?
Everybody, all aboard. We better get those bids back and award the bid right away, because we have to get that started. Town Board Resolution 2025-839 to accept the 2024 audited financial statements from Naraki Smith LLP for the town of Southampton, and to authorize the town clerk to publish a notice of 2024 financial report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-840 to accept the December 31st, 2024 Community Preservation Fund audit from Cullen and Danowski LLP for the town of Southampton, and to authorize the town clerk to publish a notice of the Community Preservation Fund financial statements and independent auditor's report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-841 to accept payment and amend the 2025 capital budget for the West Hampton Activity Center project.
Can you add me to that, please?
Second.
All in favor? That's to accept the money from the sale of the other building.
Almost ready to dig a hole.
Town Board Resolution 2025-842, I move to amend. It's to amend the 2025 adopted budget for building and zoning part-time salaries, but there's a few changes on this, and Sunday, you have them?
I do, yes.
Second to the
Yeah, it's
amendment?
just to, typographical overtime instead of part-time. So, all in favor?
Aye.
And then I move to amend as adopt as amended.
Same second?
All in favor?
Aye.
You all set there? Got it. Town Board Resolution 2025-843 to amend the 2025 adopted budget for legal fees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Town Board Resolution 2025-844 to authorize the closure of a capital project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-845 to authorize the closure of inactive restricted accounts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-846 to amend the 2025-2029 capital budget based on the debt reduction policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-847, authorize addition funding for the legal active DLV Quad LLC ET versus the town of Southampton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-848 to authorize the supervisor to sign a statement of annual financial and operating information and file with the Securities Exchange Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Sorry.
Town Board Resolution 849 of 2025, authorize the town controller to establish a reserve for the Hampton Bays Water District.
Second.
All in favor?
And the motion, hold on, this was, just because we didn't have a bud thing review, so I just wanted to let you know, this was actually the first payment in the DuPont 3M liability litigation that we entered into, and the first payment was $484,995, which will be used for future infrastructure or water improvement projects for the water district.
That's great.
Yes, this is wonderful. It's been a long time coming. Thank you.
That represents about 20%
Of the settlement.
of this particular settlement.
Is there another, there's going to be another?
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
So we have to vote.
So this is just a portion of what's to come.
This is 20% of this action, but there's other proceedings as well.
Wow.
Other defendants. So.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 850, 2025. This is to appoint Dark Skies Advisory Committee for 2025. We just organized a little bit. The committee wanted to add a couple of members and take some people off that haven't been participating.
Second.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-851 to appoint Brian Hallinan to the Architectural Review Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Town Board Resolution 2025-852 to appoint Ted Jankowski as Chair of the Architectural Review Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 853 of 2025, accept donation of flags from the East Quogue Beautification Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
They seem very happy about that, getting the flags for Main Street.
Yep, 18 flags are placed on Main Street and the Village Green.
Excellent. Town Board Resolution 2025-854, approval of a covenant amendment to relocate a building envelope area within the agricultural reserve area of the map of Meadowview Farm.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-855, co-sponsored by Council Members Iacilli, Martell, and Pell, to authorize the Peconic Bay Region CPF tax refund pursuant to first-time home buyers exemption for Ricardo Dominguez de Silva.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Sunday, could you add me? I don't know why I wasn't on there.
Got it. That's good. Town Board Resolution 2025-856 to authorize the sale of town-owned .30 Pine Barrens credits to 1004 Montauk Highway LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry you had to wait all this long to hear this.
I
learned a lot.
Town Board Resolution 2025-857, co-sponsored with Councilman McMahon. I'd like to consider a formal zone change request from residents from CR 200 to Light Industry LI 400 for the properties located at 1089 Speonk Riverhead Road and 1129 Speonk Riverhead Road and 1169 Speonk Riverhead Road and 2 Clay Pit Road parcels located in the hamlet of Speonk, Remsenburg, and Eastport.
Second, and I'm sorry, I just realized who you were.
Well, it's good that you're here.
I don't want to be on a town board.
I just want to say this is greatly needed because if this goes through, it's going to help a lot of commercial and commercial people who need a place to work at.
And we actually went and toured the site,
Yes.
and you showed us around the area and why this would be beneficial.
And Michael's is working on getting and the whole board is working on trying to get the exit ramp, so that would even help this area.
But I
You're doing
do,
the right thing, trust me.
I do want to have a discussion on this. I'm glad you're here because when the applicant, when you submitted the list of specific LI 40 uses that would not be sought on the property, the list did not include asphalt processing on the additional lots. So I think that might have been an inadvertent omission. And
Yeah, I think so, because
You'd have to just step
it
up.
should have been a problem.
yeah, I thought it would have been, but
Yeah, yeah, because that was part of the purpose. We needed a little bit more room to do recycling.
I mean, something we could discuss through the
Yeah,
process.
we could
well,
fine,
why don't we
can
just have
fine
the
tune it.
well, why don't we have the elect to consider based on the
I don't know that he wants to give it up.
revision of the letter.
I don't know that he wants to give that use up, and I think he should be able to talk.
No,
to his
not to
employer.
give up the use of the asphalt processing, but not on the other parcels, just on the parcel that it's on right now.
But he came to us with that in there, and I think just in the aspect of, I think he should be able to have a conversation with his attorney and not be called on the spot right here while we're reading a resolution.
But you told the land use administrator that you didn't intend to expand the processing of the asphalt plant onto the additional parcels, but I
Not
think
the
it was-
asphalt plant, but the recycling.
The recycling.
Because we're taking Southampton's material in and we have no other place to put it.
Right,
Because some of the recycles they use back when they make the black.
so the storage is one thing, but the processing of the asphalt is to be confined to the parcel that you're on right now.
We don't have enough room to do that. That's the problem.
Well, that wasn't my understanding. I think that it was represented that you weren't going to expand the processing plant.
It was pretty clear.
Not the asphalt manufacturing plant.
That's what I'm talking
Just
about.
to make-
That's all I'm
Not gonna
talking
expand
about.
that. Not gonna expand that. But we're gonna recycle on that property is what we're hoping to do.
Make the clean.
And that would be portable equipment. It wouldn't be an asphalt plant.
Yeah, so can we, if we were going to just put this through tonight, could we?
Whatever way to clarify, it's fine with me, because that's not our intent.
I don't think we need to change this resolution to do that. I think we can do that through the change of zone process.
Well, I don't know, because the resolution references the letter that was submitted that lists the additional.
What do you think, Jim?
It's an opinion of the board. I mean, I do agree that I think we're going to be going through the change zone process. This is, as we all know, this is just the beginning. All right, you have to go through the secret process and whatnot. Did the board consider their elect to consider, did they base it on a specific set of circumstances?
He had told the board that he was going to be doing recycling on this property.
And then they submitted a list of things that they would not do, but it didn't include
Is that list
the
reflected in this?
recycling. I mean, it didn't include.
I'm just saying, is the list reflected in this resolution, or?
It says it references the letter that they sent with the uses that they wouldn't, I mean, but that's what we agreed to, that's their lawyer drafted. I think it's unfair to ask to change it now as we're adopting this.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't, then the whole, every parcel could be then consumed by asphalt manufacturing, which is not the intent, but that's a possibility.
I
and
think
don't
Mr.
think we should do
Monaco was saying tonight, right, they're not expanding the asphalt portion onto any of the properties that would be considered for changing.
Correct.
I think we have that on the record now, so I think we're good. You've had it on the record, so you're basing your elect to consider on a fact inclusive of the other items that are listed in the letter. You're also basing it on the fact that Mr. Monaco will not, there's no plans to expand the asphalt plant beyond its current site, and it will not be on the other parcels that are being considered.
Plus,
for
through the
changes.
change of zone, the change of zone will spell out specifically what is and
Oh,
isn't
well, of
permitted on
course,
the
at that
site.
point, absolutely, yeah, sure, when you make your final decision on a change of zone, it'll be inclusive, but
For that to be.
I mean, in my understanding, Ms. Supervisor, your concern is you might not even elect to consider the change of zone unless it's clear that the asphalt plant is to remain on, not to be expanded onto one of the other change of zone parcels.
That's what I thought we were considering, and that's what was represented, but that wasn't what came in the letter.
Okay, but
And
I
I think it
believe-
might have been inadvertently omitted, but maybe it was intentionally omitted, I don't know.
I
We
think
made the record clear tonight that.
I think that we spoke, that the blacktop was gonna stay exactly where it was, And the other property, he wanted to put the
Recycling.
recycling and build the
Yeah.
buildings and rent them
But
out.
then why
think
didn't
everybody's on the same
why didn't the letter reflect that? You know,
I don't think that, no, anyone even thought about it, because
No.
the blacktop was the
Well-
blacktop.
And he
Portion.
never even during our work session said anything about expanding
Yeah,
that at all.
so, you know,
We have it in the record tonight.
Yeah. so, I mean, when we go to, we could put it in later in, you know.
We're gonna have to spell out very specifically what uses are and aren't permitted when we do the
Through the
change
change
of
of
zone.
zone process, absolutely.
And we adopt that resolution to change the zone, there we can make sure it's spelled out very
They've
clearly
been
that
very
it's not
honorable to
permitted.
work with.
oh yeah, I'm really pleased. Don't take it as it's just, you know, there is something in writing that conflicts with what was represented, so I just wanted to clarify it for the record.
Yeah, I think that would just,
I'm surprised because I went through a whole checklist of what we could do and what we couldn't do.
It mentioned, you know, concrete processing would not be allowed, but not, you know, the expansion of the asphalt processing. So, all right, well, if, you know, as long as we can do
But
it.
Mr. Montecalvo, your intention is not to expand the
Absolutely not.
the asphalt.
Yeah, all we want to do is recycle on it. And like I said, it's 99% of it's Southampton's material that we're recycling.
it's non-returnable, no.
Thankfully, he stayed here for 3 hours for him to ask this question.
Yeah.
You weren't here.
What now?
I haven't seen that letter,
It was worth it.
It's got a whole,
Yeah,
it
it was
spells
worth
out a whole
it.
bunch of uses that he's giving up that would be allowed in LI 40.
inclusive of the asphalt line.
But I don't think
Asphalt
asphalt,
was even-
I
was
don't
it
think
mentioned?
asphalt, I don't think that's even allowed anymore.
Right.
I think you're like, it's an old
I think we're all on
non-conforming
the
use,
same
right?
page. I mean, I feel very.
Yeah, I
comfortable with
don't
It's not
think-
even a use that's on
Mr.
our use tables
Monacovo's,
anymore, I don't
uh,
think. I think it's a non-conforming use at this point. It wouldn't be permitted in LI 40, that's why he wasn't asked to give it up.
It's probably right.
But
I think it's very
concrete
clear
is-
that Mr. Montecalvo is not going for any expansion of his asphalt plant on the
Well, it's
subject
on the
property
record.
to be zoned. He stated very clearly tonight, and I think we're all on the same page on that issue.
We have a motion in a second.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's fine, and when we do the change of zone,
Yeah,
we'll just
this is,
clarify.
no, this is
Whatever
just the beginning.
clarification we have to do, we're willing to do.
Thank you. All right, so let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for your patience.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
staying.
you.
Thanks for
Thanks for
sticking
staying.
it out.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
You could have taken it out of order.
I didn't realize he was here for that until Bill said you stayed. Town Board Resolution 858 of 2025, waive snowmobile fields for Eastport Fire Department.
Second, and I'd like to be added as co-sponsor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-859 to accept the retirement of Alan Reeves, Assistant Labor Crew Leader in the Highway Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, Sunday, I mean, if we're all going to be added on that, please add me
Okay.
to the prior one.
858.
I did add you
Thank you.
because I had to write really fast.
Town Board Resolution 2025-860 to appoint Greg Hansen to Senior Cook in Senior Services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 861 of 2025, attend NYAHN Annual Hostage Negotiator Conference in Rochester, New York.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 862 of 2025, attendance at award ceremony, which should be a better title to let you know that Christopher Brenner was awarded Dispatcher of the Year at the New York VFW 100th Annual State Convention.
Very proud of him. Congratulations.
I'd like to be
Second.
added on to that too.
I'm sorry.
And Chris Brenner is.
Are you on,
Buying it.
are you on 860?
862.
He was born and raised in Southampton.
I don't have 861. Okay.
There is no, well, I did 861. It was a hostage negotiator conference.
Okay. Who was the second?
I was.
That's 61. Okay. All right, 62?
Who seconded?
I was.
Bill did.
All in
Can you add
favor?
me- Can you add me to
Aye.
that one too, please?
No. What? I'm sorry. On which one?
862.
Now we're getting punch drunk.
Okay. So you want to be added to 862?
Yeah.
Bill.
We have to do
Bill.
863.
And he's a second. Did we
Got it.
vote on that?
Nope.
Kinda
All in
did, yeah.
favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 863 of 2025, authorize attendance at the New York State Association of Chiefs of Police 2025 Training Conference.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-864, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to authorize attendance at the U.S. Open in Oakmont, Pennsylvania.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-865, to authorize the supervisor to sign a stipulation with the PBA.
Second.
All in favor?
Back to the US Open one, I just want people to not think we sent a police officer to the US Open and we're paying for it. Captain Cobb went in order to look at their safety protocols and stuff for the US Open, which will be here next year.
Does he play golf?
I don't know, and if he did, it was on his own time.
Not on that course.
I doubt on that course, exactly.
That's tough.
Town Board Resolution 2025-866, to authorize the town supervisor to sign stipulations of agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-867, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, a resolution accepting the deed of open space in connection with the planned residential development cluster plan known as Northview Noyak LLC in the hamlet of Noyak.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-868, a road review application for Jacqueline Cressy, Suffolk County Tax Map number as indicated, situate at North Sea, is accepted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have the 3 walk-ons.
Town Board Resolution ID 50241, notice of public hearing for amendments to Town Code, Chapter 143, Article 1, or Article I? Is that Article I or Article 1?
Second.
Entitled Licensing of Home Improvement Contractors to Further Refine Application and Appeals Procedures. We had a work session on this.
We had a work session on it, and then there were some changes that were requested, and some of them are not reflected in this. Sorry. And Janice isn't here, so,
Okay.
I mean, they're probably
Do you know what they are?
minimal. Like, there was one that she was gonna add, these probably, we could go to the public hearing and then do it then. Like she said, posting on the town website when somebody's suspended, it said may, and it was gonna be changed to shall, but it didn't get changed.
Oh, we can change that during the public hearing process,
That's
right?
easy.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, she was gonna say that there needed to be a fee for stickers, additional stickers over a certain amount that were gonna be given. So I don't know, that didn't show up, maybe it doesn't.
We can
need to
change
be in
that,
there.
too.
Yeah, but the rest looks good, so.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And that's Tuesday, July 8th at 1 PM.
And then Town Board Resolution ID number 50257, to authorize the town attorney to accept a settlement from PURE Insurance Company for damage to a Southampton Town Police Department vehicle.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Town Board Resolution ID number 50261, which is the warrant number 12, capital number 12, CPF number 12, dated June 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Well, if no one has any other business,
Not tonight.
then I move to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.